Hey, what's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Weeb Seen It podcast. This week is episode number 34. As always, my name's Cam.
And I'm Jimmy.
And let's just get right into the episode, guys. Hey, guys, and welcome back to another episode. Once again, thanks as always for tuning in. Our second week of doing the online podcast. Have we gotten used to it yet? Nope. It takes a lot more setup. You know, I used to think the amount of setup we had in person was crazy. But this is way worse. Like, if you got to see in front of me, there are just like wires everywhere. My room's like completely blocked off. It's now went from being like a room / studio to now it just seems like a studio. Like, this room has no practical use anymore. It is just for me to record. So before we get into the actual the episodes today, we're gonna have a little short discussion about, like, you know, what other shows we're watching, because some people always ask in the comments. Or, you know, what other anime have we dropped now that we're in that 3, 4, 5 episode range? Stuff like that. We'll just get into a short discussion about it. Of course, if you want to skip that discussion, we're going to have all the timestamps for all the regular weekly anime down below. So you can just click one of those and go right to the anime. As always, if you're watching this, we ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. I think we're getting close to 500 subs, which is halfway towards our goal. Which is good because we still have a whole another half year or so left. So, you know, even if you're just watching this for one part, we ask that you subscribe. You know, we're only posting one time a week, so we shouldn't be bogging down your feed too much, hopefully. But yeah, before we get into the discussion, of course, we got to do our non-sponsored energy drinks. I'm facing the non-label to the camera. Crack these open real fast. These are what give us the energy so early in the morning.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we've recorded this early, too.
Yeah, I think there was I don't remember, it was like episode like 13 or 14 or something. It was the first episode we filmed in the daylight back then, which was straight. We only noticed because I think I had like the side window and there was light. We're like, what the hell's that light coming through the window? Like, I've never seen that.
So much natural lighting. What is this?
But yeah, obviously, so typically we record on the Monday after we watch the anime. But yesterday we couldn't record immediately after, like, Higehiro and To Your Eternity. So we're doing it this morning, which is early Tuesday. And hopefully I'm going to be able to go through and edit this all and have it up by like today afternoon kind of thing. So hopefully that all works out. But yeah, on to the intro topic here. So obviously every single season so far since we started this, we've done we kind of did a little synopsis on every anime, and we watched the first episode of each one's in the season. Now, just because we did that, we did obviously get the finished list that we have going on right now based off of our first impressions, fan base, votes in the comments, stuff like that. Just that's kind of how we decided our list, which means there were some that weren't on there. But which of these animes have we continued to watch? Which have we dropped? That's always the question. You know, every week I get a comment being like, "Hey, are you guys watching, Shadow House, or are you guys still watching like Don't Toy with Me Nagatoro-san?" Or like, so Jimmy, you're gonna answer first. What have you kept on? What have you kept on watching that we're not talking about? What have you dropped on purpose, or what have you just accidentally dropped from being busy?
Honestly, I haven't been keeping up with as much as I normally do, just with everything going on. The main ones I've been keeping up with were Dynazenon, which I don't think we ever talked about.
We didn't. We missed it, even though we both watched the first episode. It's kaiju and mechs, big fighting. It's Trigger, isn't it?
It is Trigger, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm a sucker for Trigger when they work on mechs. So beyond that, I've been keeping up with Back Arrow actually from last season, because it actually got a second core.
Okay, that was the show I only watched the one episode of, and I was just like, no. I was like, I just can't.
Beyond that, I've been keeping up with Iruma, The World Ends With You, and actually, I think that might be it. I've fallen off on kind of everything else. I want to catch up on Shadow House, but I just haven't had a chance to get through the couple episodes.
I've been really curious about The World Ends With You. Like, is it good? I always wonder. It's like whenever you make like I know it's kind of the same kind of not, but whenever they make like live action video game movies, and it never has the same feel. I feel the same about whenever they make anime off video games. A lot of people disagree with me. The only one I can really think of that I liked a lot was actually the Persona 5 animation, which, some people saying it sucks in comparison to the game. But how can you fit a 100-hour game into, 12 episodes or whatever it was? It's hard to do.
It really is. I think they've been doing a good job so far, but I think the biggest problem I have with it is that I never actually completed the game back in the day. So I ended up picking it up on Switch because I had some extra cash. But
listen,
honestly,
Switch is one of the issues right now. Switch is one of the reasons I'm missing out on all these anime.
Yeah, I know. You've got a little bit of a problem when it comes to Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how life is, right? Obviously, a lot of people know. They are two separate cultures, but come on, they branch a lot. Video games and anime.
Oh, God, yeah.
I don't know a single guy who watches anime that also doesn't like video games, so...
Yeah.
it branches over, so we get a little bit busy doing both sometimes. But it becomes like one of the main issues is I don't think that right now we're purposefully dropping a lot of things. It's not like the King's Raid, for instance, right? Like we took multiple weeks to shit on King's Raid, and then as soon as we had the opportunity to drop, we're like, okay, like later King's Raid, we're done with you.
Yeah,
I think that most anime right now are just like, I have to watch these 7 episodes for the podcast. These are like the number one picks from the week. And if I'm also then busy doing other things, whether it's actual important things or if it's just, playing Monster Hunter or hanging out with my wife, stuff like that, then like, those other animes get kind of tossed on the side.
Yeah, because I think shows like Vivy and 86 and Revengers are probably the ones that I would normally watch if we weren't talking about them anyways, that I prioritize.
Yeah.
So just my priority series are just ones we're already talking about.
Well, they also seem like shows that are going to make the biggest impact after the season's over, right? Whether it's through future seasons or just like the hype or like how good the ending was, if it just turns out to be a 1-season show, I feel like those are going to be the ones with the biggest impact. Then obviously stuff like I really did enjoy the first 2 episodes of like Don't Toy With Me Nagatoro, but I haven't seen the newest 2 just because I just haven't had time for the spare anime yet.
That is true.
But I will watch them once I have like a week where I'm just like really bored and like my video games kind of run dry. Trying to think, I have actually kept up. This is just the classic degenerate me. I of course have never missed an episode of How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. See, hell would have to freeze over before I'm missing it. It's entertaining. It's a good season so far.
I'm sure it is.
I still don't agree with people who said that like, oh, you guys are going to want to talk about this season on the podcast. I'm still not agreeing with those people yet because I don't know if that's true. But I have been enjoying it. But yeah, stuff like Don't Toy With Me, I have kept up on the Demon School. I found that to be relatively entertaining. As we know, I just watched the entire remaining first season, like right before we started this season of anime, just so I could watch it. So it's like really fresh in my mind. So I'm enjoying that. Same thing though. I definitely don't think so far there's been enough that we could have talked about on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of also has the problem of where they left off on a cliffhanger and they still haven't even got to the cliffhanger technically.
Yeah, they're waiting till like an arc or 2 in to get to the cliffhanger that was the end of season 1. So it was very strange. I was confused when we first got there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I honestly don't think they expected to get another season.
Yeah, I guess that's possible. And they're just like, hey, we'll just do this instead.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other things what other things did we talk about early on? I didn't start any of the sports anime. So there was like I think there was a different soccer one. There was the Kabaddi one. I don't know what the hell that is to begin with, but I've heard it's good. But I haven't watched it yet, just because once again, doing the podcast episodes are first and foremost in my mind when it comes to anime episodes. I was actually really interested in Shadow House, and a lot of people still to this day in the comments are still like, "Hey, you guys should still think about talking about Shadow House." And it was an intriguing first episode. I actually did watch it with my wife, and she like watched it, and she was kind of getting intrigued by the mystery. I haven't watched it since, but I definitely will. I'll probably just take like this week and catch up just in case.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, is there anything on our list currently that you're like, this might be a show I'm going to fall off of?
Honestly, no. It seems like a really strong list this time around.
Yeah, the closest I can say would be like what I've done before with like My Hero, where I would like fall off. If this was like a season where I wasn't talking about it on the podcast, I would maybe fall off of My Hero for a little bit until all those episodes are out and I could just binge watch all the entire like class versus class shit. Because it just feels like so anticlimactic, like waiting a week just to see like fucking Naval Laser do absolutely nothing, Like he's the best character and he keeps getting shafted. Like did nothing in that fight.
I mean, yeah, he had like one thing at the end of the last episode, and then he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna be scared now.
It just kind of just feels like sometimes like it's like I'm waiting a week, right? So the anticipation's building each time, and then the episodes that I'm getting are not hitting it. So if I wasn't doing a podcast, I would probably wait till the entire class arc is like over and they start the real arc,
right?
And I just fucking take one day and binge watch the entire thing, and then be caught up and be like, okay, now I'm ready for the good arc. Like put me in, coach.
Yeah, I think that's just intrinsic to shonen, just the idea of you want to watch just a big block of it. You don't want to watch one episode at a time for no progress. But
yeah, I mean that's fair, but there's other like I don't know, because like newer shonen like Jujutsu Kaisen, for instance, every week I was hyped for that, and every week I feel like every single week it paid off. Sometimes more than I was expecting, maybe sometimes a little bit less, but either way, it always paid off. But I think that My Hero will when we get to the the next arc. Once we get past this one, or even maybe when we get to Midoriya's fight, when we have to hit like the important character fights. But I mean, it's still enjoyable. Like I'm never like watching it like and halfway through I want to turn it off. That's not what's happening. I just in my mind, I'm like,
yeah.
I wish that we were like, I'm just thinking back to all the best My Hero moments, and it's sometimes that's some of the
Yeah.
high that shonen can be, but it has had a few lows recently.
I mean, you need some lows. That's just natural.
Yeah.
So.
Now I did just recently get the My Hero because I watched the original one. I think Two Heroes was the first movie. I watched that a while ago.
Yeah.
And then Heroes Rising, I
Sure.
think, is the newest movie. I'm pretty sure.
That is true. Yes.
Yes. So I have Heroes Rising, so I'm excited to see that because a movie you're always going to get that ending hype fight, and I also have Mugen Train, the Demon Slayer movie. So as we know,
much, I want to see that.
That just premiered in like U.S. theater this past weekend, and it was like the #1 anime at the box office, like of all time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we obviously know how crazy well it performed in Japanese theaters when it came out. So I'm pretty hyped for the movie, but I'm also hyped just for what that means for like the anime industry in general when it comes to Western theaters and shit like that. It's like, yes, that's obviously an exception because it's the Demon Slayer movie. And
yeah, but
there might be some negatives in it. Like, as we know, I don't think we actually talked about it on the podcast yet, but quintessential quintuplets.
Yeah, they're getting movies instead of endings.
They're getting movies instead of an anime season, which, that kind of like, yeah, like sure, the movie will be extremely high quality. The animation is going to be insane. It's going to look fantastic. But like, how much would I enjoy watching that over 13 weeks though? Instead of like, a movie that's going to take an extra year and a half to be translated for me to be able to see it.
Yeah, because it's also like less content technically overall. Because even if they do 2 movies, it's still only like 3 hours of content.
Yeah, compared to you have a full like 6 hours from the anime season kind of thing. Yeah, it's also just like the biggest issue. I don't think I'd mind so much if the movies came out at a simultaneous release, but that won't happen. Even with something as huge as Demon Slayer movie, you get like a whole year before it's translated and coming to theaters, let alone until you can actually legally watch it somewhere. It's not even on like a Crunchyroll or a Funimation or anything yet, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So
I've seen a couple of things where I think the Goblin Slayer movie, they did like a limited release on Funimation where you could watch it over like 2 weeks officially translated.
I mean, dude, they could do what like Disney Plus is doing and come out with like a rental on those apps. Like, Crunchyroll, yeah, you pay an extra $10 or something like that to watch it through Crunchyroll. But think of how much bonus money they'd make.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because a lot of places, like obviously, one of the reasons we're doing the online podcast is because our region is currently shut down due to a pandemic that shall not be named. So even if the Demon Slayer movie did come out right now in theaters, which it isn't for us, but even if it did, our theaters would be closed.
Yeah, we couldn't watch it if we wanted to.
That's why places like Disney Plus, they did those kind of rental things, even if their prices are a little bit ridiculous because it's Disney. But that's why they did that. So people from home could try and get like a theater experience with these premiering movies. But with anime, we don't have anything like that yet, but maybe with this success one day we will. Maybe we'll get animated movies translated quicker and moved over onto platforms like Funimation, Crunchyroll, and stuff like that faster in the future.
Yeah.
So that's all we can really hope for. And then I don't think I mentioned this last week. I think I mentioned this to you privately, but they have announced that they're ending free with the 2 movies. And if you don't know, you'd have to be an OG fan of Weeb, seen it from like 40 weeks ago or however long we started, 34 weeks ago, to know that I'm a big Free fan. Okay.
Yep.
A lot of people are like, wait a minute, can you be a straight male and be a fan of Free? I'm like, yes, you can be a fan of Free. I've cosplayed it before. We did a group cosplay of Free for a local con, which was fantastic. Me and one of my friends, it's one of our old bonding memories before we really knew each other that well. So, good memories. And I've loved every season, but with the whole like Kyoto Animations Fire thing that happened, a lot of stuff got like delayed. There was supposed to be another season of Free, but I think mixed between that and also COVID, something happened. But now instead they announced there's 2 movies and one comes out fall this year. Once again, I don't know how quickly, we'll get that even translated, hopefully relatively fast. Because it's not, I don't think it's like a theater. I doubt it's like a theater movie. I don't think it has the hype around it as like a Demon Slayer or My Hero movie. And then I think the other one comes out next year as well. So the next one comes out in 2022. So that's going to be exciting. If you're a fan of Free, which, I'd love to say you should be, but you probably shouldn't be. But it's too late now.
It's a very specific niche.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably one of those like 95% female. The other one too is that I'm actually a big fan of Yuri on Ice, which a lot of people also are like, why are you a fan of Yuri on Ice? You're not like a 13-year-old girl. And I'm like, I don't know. I like sports anime. And there's technically sport in it, so I like it. But I don't know. I don't know. So if we're missing any anime that we haven't been watching weekly, let us know down below. As I said, for the most part, we're going to try and keep up on all of them when we have the time. The podcast anime always kind of has our like first priority. But we're going to try and watch these other ones. That way, if we decide that we need to make some sort of shift or even add in an episode, like we don't necessarily have to take away one of the ones we're talking about to add a new one in. We can just decide, hey, you know what, we'll suffer. We'll make this podcast an extra 20 minutes to add in this episode people really care about. So, if there's a show that you want, keep bugging us about it. Keep letting us know. Don't be like, I told them 3 weeks ago. Like they'll probably remember. Because we won't. We won't remember that because we're brutal. We can't even remember names of anime characters. And this is what
we're like
we do.
goldfish. We have no memory.
Yeah, so every single week,
in and out.
Every week, if there's a show you want to see, let us know down below. And that way we're going to keep watching it. We'll keep feeling pressured to have to view it on our own time. I'll have to do one less Monster Hunt that day and go and watch an episode of Shadow House or, whatever you guys want to see. And that'll let us know so we can keep the list updated for you guys. Okay, I think that's it for our little discussion. Are we ready to get on to the actual anime?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so as always, first up on the list, one of my favorite things is that the first up on the list is now probably one of the biggest ones for our channel, which is Kumo Desu episode number 16.
Am I getting ahead of myself?
So we mentioned this before we started the podcast. The one hard part about Kumo Desu now, the sad part, is that it is probably one of the biggest ones for our channel. Obviously, if you're watching this and you're, not from the Kumo Desu subreddit, you're probably one of the rare exceptions to the channel. Tons of people came in. That was when our videos went from having like 40 views upwards now to sometimes we're hitting like the 2,000 mark. And a lot of it started just with, posting on those different subreddits and finding people in the Kumo Desu subreddit who actually cared, and they wanted to see more content. The downside about this now is that with the day shifts to allow for more anime to be talked about at a more appropriate time, Kumo Desu is the first thing we watch each week, which means it's the farthest in our memory from when we get back to the recording. Which kind of sucks because every single week we start off and I'm like, what did happen in the first part? I always remember the ending because Kumo Desu always has an ending. Like the ending of each episode is always something big. It's always a fucking either a red herring or a twist or a hint or something.
Yeah, there's always some sort of hook to keep you going.
And this week is definitely no exception when it comes to the ending.
Yeah.
But I guess before we get into the ending, we should probably get into the beginning.
Okay. So do you remember where it started this week? Or
no, I don't, Jimmy. How dare you even ask? I'm pretty sure it starts with Kumo after she beats the other spiders. Or do we start from the human side?
It starts with Kumo, and it starts with her waking up from her evolution.
Okay, yes, because someone mentioned this in the comments, and it did immediately happen. Someone mentioned that now she doesn't like sleep through the evolution or some shit because of a side effect of one of her skills. And then someone else, like I think mentioned on the comment, they're like, well, we don't know if that's like, that might be a spoiler. I think they might discuss that next episode. They did discuss it next episode. They brought it up
every time.
Every single time. If you mention something in the comments, just be aware that it's going to come up next episode. So I don't even know if I'd mention it, but I'd still comment for the algorithm. But so she wakes up from the evolution. We find out that, once again, terrible memory. I don't remember which one of her, 7 deadly sins skills it comes from. Maybe wisdom. I don't perseverance. Like with the side effect that makes it so she no longer like sleeps through her evolution. I just don't remember which branch it comes off of.
I want to say wisdom, but I feel like that's wrong.
The thing about it is that people always comment when we're wrong about one of the skills. There are so many of them on her page. And like you got to remember
half the time they're not even translated.
Yeah, half the time they're not translated. Sometimes they pop up for like 1 second and it's an entire screen of just white text. And I'm like, am I supposed to keep up on this every single week? Maybe. We could literally genuinely just change to being a Kumo Desu podcast, talk about no other anime, probably get as many views and have more time to deep dive into each episode. But unfortunately we're too as I said, we're too goldfishy for that. We have quick thoughts and then they go away fast, so we kind of dive in quickly into every anime. But yeah, that
is very accurate.
I was gonna say in general, I think that this week was a relatively slow week for anime, with a few exceptions. Obviously, even the Kumo Desu episode was a little bit slower. Right, from Kumo's perspective, a lot of it was, or Kumako's perspective, a lot of it was just her walking around, thinking about like the mother. We even get like some soft, her fishing and enjoying a good time. Obviously, the fishing gets interrupted 2 separate times, but
that is true. We also got to see her fight the puppet spider, though.
Yeah, which she immediately destroyed. It was all like very fast, right? It was like they were trying to show you what actually mattered and what didn't matter, and and like that did not matter in this. She quickly. She went up, she used her teleportation or whatever the hell it is to pull water from the ocean there into the room to then drown like the puppet spider and kill it. And you're like, oh, like I thought this was going to be like an epic fight, but it was just fucking over in a second. It was basically a montage.
Kumiko just didn't give a fuck. She just won that without even trying.
Yeah, not to mention she fights a water dragon as well. And every single dragon fight we've seen has been an epic battle, right? Even Rend was already like mostly injured, almost dead from the fight that we know is with the mother. Yeah. And even then, that was a hard-ass fight. She almost died multiple times. The Araba fight was like her hardest fight to date. It took nonstop planning, and even then, all of our plans went wrong. And she had to overcome this extremely tough enemy. Then they had like a mutual respect for each other in the end when they finished. And then she fights the water dragon, and she just fucking wrecks it. It's just done. It doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
Now
it's probably equivalent of a backhand.
Obviously, the thing is like those other dragons are inside the hardest dungeon in the world. So they're probably tougher. The water dragon probably not so much. Maybe there's just more of them, kind of thing. But either way, we get to see her just wreck it, showing her strength. And then another big part of the episode is taking place on like the human side, human perspective, and that's also a lot of like kind of chilling. As we know from the last episode, they're making their way to the dungeon. They stop in a small town to get a guide to the dungeon. It's a young man who's like, "No, I can't take you," or like they'll come after my family, that kind of shit. And then his dad comes in and he's like, "Shut up, you cuck! I'm taking them then." Like he's like, "I didn't raise no pussy boy. Like get in there."
I hate that's basically what he said.
I mean, listen, I respect him. He's just like, "Hey, don't be such a fucking loser." He's like, "I'm taking these guys if you won't." And so he does. And then the only interesting part I'd say that we have before that is the new Fae look, if you will.
Yeah, she got a human form.
She got a human form, and I don't like it because
really.
Okay, here's the thing. So in a design point, I also don't like it because I don't like the short-haired anime girls. There's going to be exceptions, but they're not my type.
I was going to say, Ichika? Like...
There's exceptions, but she's not my type. And then B, I just feel like even Shun mentions it, like now that she like looks more like herself, her personality is changing more. I liked that Faye was kind of like accepting the fact that, she was born this way because of the mean thing she did in her past life. And she, she's like, I deserve this form. And then even as she got stronger, she became a more powerful dragon. She at least was like useful to her friend, even if like she still didn't like the way she looked and stuff like that. And now as soon as she gets this human form in this, she starts seeming more like cocky. Like there are some parts where you can see that, she's still changed. She's still like a little bit more shy. She obviously has something more for Shun now than she did in the previous life. But she still has like those more cocky moments now from having the human form.
Yeah, she's a little closer to how she was when she used to be bullying Kumiko.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want her to go back, right? That's like the danger side. But it's possible that now she's lived a new life in this new form and stuff like that. Maybe she's changed for permanently, and we're just seeing small little glimpses of her past life. But yeah, there was that interesting. I don't know. I just don't want her to be a bitch. I like that she was like, hey, you know what? I was a dick in my past life. So I was born as a dragon, even though I think most people wouldn't consider that bad.
Yeah, but you have to remember, she was like freaking like Chihuahua-sized dragon originally.
Yeah,
so...
I guess. I was gonna say, it could have been worse. She could have been born a spider or a beetle or anything else.
Yeah, she looked like a mascot from like a B-list JRPG. So
yeah, she like a Tails game. Tails games always have the cute mascots. Yeah, I could see it. But yeah, so Faye comes in as a human. They dress her, get her clothes, all that kind of stuff, and then they have to make their way to the dungeon. But because of what we've seen, there's all the soldiers posted at the front of the dungeons. They can't go in that way. So the old man tells them about a secret route where you jump off the cliff and you find an underwater way into the dungeon. Which it sounds relatively fine, except for A, Faye can't swim, and B, apparently there's water dragons. But as the one guy states, he's like, well, there's a chance the water dragons attack us. He's like, if we go to the dungeon entrance, we're guaranteed to be attacked by the soldiers. Like, so, I guess, which would you prefer? I feel like the hero and like, the old hero's companion and all them could probably take out some soldiers, but I mean, whatever.
I mean, if they do that, it kind of reinforces the whole like, oh my god, they must be evil attitude people have towards them.
It also would probably then, I don't know if they specifically mentioned which soldiers, like from where, but their color scheme looks a lot like Hugo's color scheme, if you've noticed that.
I'm pretty sure it was the church's soldiers.
Okay, yeah. So the other thing too then is that if they go there, that would alert the characters as to where they go. Then Hugo and all them would probably know. So it's a good thing they do the other one. Now, one big thing that's not from this episode, but we got mentioned in 999 comments, was something that we missed from last week. I don't know if you read the comments to find this out, but the vampire girl,
right?
Her name 2 episodes ago, when Kumo.
Oh yeah, they showed the name, didn't they?
Yeah, she is in fact spooky. Whatever, because I said that before. I was like, okay, the main issue is that me and Jimmy, we watched the episode where they showed the flashback scene. And like we only remember that girl as spooky, right? We do not remember her real name because I was like, okay, there's 2 names here. One is a traditional. We got 2 names, both Japanese. that we are never going to remember, and one is that we have an English, very easy to remember, very weird nickname. So we immediately latched onto the name Spooky. So then when she did scan the little vampire girl and we saw the real name, everyone out there who remembered the name was like, oh, what a twist. And we're like, oh, okay, sure. Who the fuck's that? I don't know. So then the next episode, we're like, maybe she's Spooky. And everyone's like, no, she is. Like, you can see it in this episode.
Yeah, so, I meant to go back and check the name, and I'm an idiot.
Listen, it's actually okay. We actually tricked all the people into commenting. So, haha, algorithm. But yeah, we did miss that, and we missed many things. But that's part of the fun, right? That's why you guys are here. You're not here to watch us be smart.
That is true. Our biggest weakness is always going to be names.
Yeah, I mean, there are some exceptions. Like there are some anime where I feel like they have very different names. Like if it's just a standard anime and every character is Japanese, then we're gonna miss a lot of the names because we're not Japanese ourselves. So a lot of the names, unless they don't necessarily mean anything to us. But then even shows like in Kumo Desu, I can remember the human names because they're different, right?
Hugo, Schlain, and those just stick out a little bit more when you're watching anime.
Yeah, because you see less anime that has those names in them. Which is that's part of the reason to remember those better. Even I'm never gonna remember or forget Kumiko at this point, but
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We obviously didn't notice that the first time, but thanks for commenting. We know now, even though it's something we should have known at the time. But that's why the comments are helpful for anything, any small details we miss. I bet there's 100 in this episode alone that we missed.
Yeah, definitely.
Because so
I'm not going to deny it.
Yeah, from the human side too, they ask more questions to the teacher about all the reincarnations, that kind of stuff. And we don't really get any answers from her still. The only interesting thing is I think when Face is like, hey, one of the reincarnations is the hero. And she's like, what if one of the other reincarnations is the demon lord? And the teacher's like, I'll never say. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Like,
yeah, she's literally just said, I know everything. And then they're like, oh, do you know this? And she's like, I don't know. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah,
I mean, the only other thing... I'll save that for when we get to the ending, obviously, because that is relevant to this topic.
Yes, it is.
So I'll save that part. But yeah, I mean, the teacher still. A lot of people said in last week's comments that in the next episode the teacher's going to explain more. She's going to go more into stuff like that. I don't really think she did, unless I missed a key detail. She's pretty much still said the same thing. She discussed how some are dead. Oh my god, I almost just missed such an important key detail. We forgot about Kumiko's talk with Administrator D.
I was going to bring that up once you finished. I was going to say we learned more from the administrator than we did from the teacher.
It's true, yeah. Maybe that's what people meant in the comments.
Maybe.
I think one of the most important facts that we learned from the administrator is that she's trying to confirm my theory, where the administrator admits that she is a student. That's obviously she goes into a lot more detail than that. She talks about how they died was from the previous hero and Demon Lord fighting, and they somehow broke through a fucking different dimension.
I don't think they were fighting. I think they were working together to try and break the cycle.
Well, yeah, also to fuck with the person, because the Administrator D says that she thinks they were there for her specifically.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder a lot of things, but still makes me believe that my theory about one of them being a time traveler is correct. I don't know if it's Kumiko. One of my theories from 5 or 6 episodes ago was okay, listen, hear me out. I was like, Kumiko eventually gets the power, so much power, she becomes the administrator, and then somehow time travels and fucks over this whole thing where they have to kill her. I don't know. It's too complicated for me to even put in words without coming up with a deep dive. But I feel like
it'd be more of a Haruhi situation where it's just someone's a demigod or something.
I don't think that it's just going to be a student we haven't seen yet, be Administrator D. I think it's got to be a character that we already know, and it's just a very weird situation where something wacky has happened with some sort of time travel, alternate dimension shit. I don't think it's just next season we'll meet a different female who was originally in the class who's going to turn out to be Administrator D. I think it's going to be more complicated than that.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't even have to be a female character, technically. It could have been the one friend who we haven't seen reincarnated yet.
That's true. I actually think that friend is either going to be one of the Demon Lord army, one of the guys we've seen, or dead. They need to actually have one of these characters be dead. That they know to really make the whole thing seem very real to people like Shun and stuff like that. There's still a guess where everybody. The names of the characters in this is still a big deal, right? Everybody mentions how it's still not confirmed that Wakaba is even Kumiko. There's a chance that we find out at some point, that Kumiko isn't actually Wakaba, and Wakaba is actually the person who becomes Administrator D, and Kumiko is someone else. There's all these different there's all these different outcomes. The show is impossible to guess. Every time we have a theory, someone's like, "Well, you're 10% right, 90% wrong on the theory, but part of it's true," and I'm like, But
Yeah.
which part?
Yeah, we get something confirmed, but we also have it disproved at the same time, and then they throw us another red herring, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, so basically, Administrator D says that like because of this fight slash whatever, they came to the human world. Their attack like exploded the classroom. There was like 26 people that reincarnated or something, or like 20. Was it 25 or 26?
I think it was 26 people in the classroom, 25 reincarnated.
Yeah, because then Kumiko's like, wait, like even the teacher kind of thing. And she's like, that would be like the wrong number. And she's like, well, like me too, kind of thing. And that's where she's like, oh, like you're a reincarnation. And she's like, oh yeah. And then she explains that she thinks
Kind
that,
of.
Yeah, she explains that she thinks the reason why it would even happen to that specific spot was because she was there. It kind of makes me think that like I don't know. Once again, we're just throwing out stupid theories here. It makes me think that like the Kumiko world, obviously we've seen is very video game like. So like one of the students there was trying to work on some sort of virtual game or something like that and created a virtual world by accident that's almost like an alternate dimension where then the people in that world tried to like rise up to stop the person who created it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how else it can work, and that's my only theory. Is that a kid there was like, "Hey, I'm going to make the next, VR MMO to make a sick isekai about it." So they're trying to make a VR MMO, which somehow they're so good at making games that it becomes a real world, and then the fucking demon lord and the hero in the world they created have to rise up to try and like stop the god, where they go through an alternate dimension, combining their powers to then try to attack the person who created the video game world. I don't know. There, I'm giving you guys some fuel to comment in the comments about whether or not what percentage I'm right. But yeah,
that's actually how it turns out. I'm just gonna laugh.
I don't know. Once again, I'm sure 12% of what I said is true and 88% is wrong. Like it's the same thing every single time. But the conversation does give us a decent amount of information about the reincarnates and stuff like that, and also the clues about Administrator D are pretty big. I don't think we're going to be getting many more this season. That's like more information than I even expected to get about the overarching plot, like the world, stuff like that I was really expecting at all. Yeah,
D just kind of popped in. It's like, by the way, here's some world building, and that was all it was.
Yeah, that was pretty much all. She's like, hey, yeah, okay, bye. And then I did obviously like the comedy of like Kumiko constantly just trying to like throw over the phone, and then she's like hitting my spider squish button, and she's like, oh no, I'm back. The comedy's always there. We don't always talk about it in the episodes because it's more just like you're laughing while you watch it kind of situation.
Oh yeah, she got a call from God, and she just tried to ignore it, and that went as well as you'd expect. So
yeah, I really want to get to the end. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing in between. Like does anything else happen to Shun after they get inside the dungeon? I feel like that's relatively it.
The biggest thing is they have the scrap with the water dragon, and then they manage to get away and get into the dungeon.
Yeah, so like nothing really important happens there. I had some questions about how long these people can hold their breath for and that kind of stuff, but if a person holding their breath got smacked against a rock like Shun did, I'm pretty sure you would expel the air in your lungs. But I don't know the science of swimming in this world. It could be like a Final Fantasy X thing where people can swim, like hold their breath 30 minutes. I don't know.
True.
So I'm not going to.
For all we know, he has like a water breathing spell that they were all using. So
yeah, either way, they do make it into the dungeon. I'm just trying to think if anything happens once they make it in.
They have a brief conversation, then they just kind of look and see that they're in the dungeon. I think everything about that's going to be next episode.
Yeah, which is fair. Okay, time for the big ending then. So Kumiko goes to fish once again, have a nice relaxing time. Once some shit happens, so she gets one of her. I think is it the magic brain?
Yeah, it's Magic Brain 1, I believe.
Comes back to warn her, and she's like, she warns her that like the mom isn't the one to be worried about. And Kumiko's like, what the fuck's she talking about? And then I think she gets like a feeling or something. Looks back across the water, and then who do we see there but the classic demon lord? The one we know in modern times.
Yeah, so we know it's not Kumiko now.
We have finally confirmed it's not. I'm pretty sure we were all confident it wasn't, but it also means... I mean, someone else also pointed out some of the... We were still having some stupidity on the timelines in Kumo Desu last week. Every single person was reincarnated at the exact same time, just the different, gestation periods, where the fuck it is for different spiders compared to babies and stuff like that. So Kumiko's mom could not possibly be a reincarnation. Could be a sibling still though. Like one of the ones born at the exact same time is a very large hatching there. But
true, they just went down a different evolution path.
Yeah, it's still a spider-based person as a demon lord for sure. That's just like a fact. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. She obviously has some sort of interest in Kumiko, but all we see is we see her appear. Kumiko tries to scan her. She tries to appraise her, and then like the appraisal is blocked. But she does see the titles. Like,
Oh yeah, she does.
because that's what I was just thinking in my mind. I was like, well, how did she see this? Because she sees the demon lord title. She sees some of these other things, like something to do with a Terratect or whatever. But she doesn't see a name, which we've already seen that when Kumiko scans people. I don't know if the appraisal was blocked too soon or something, but when she scans reincarnations, she sees their name. Like, that's what we saw with Spooky's character when she was a baby.
Yeah.
But we didn't see a name, sadly.
That is true. I think they're trying to keep that one close to the chest, and I think blocking appraisal just blocks your access to their skills and their stats.
Yeah, now because of next week's episode and the title of the next week's episode, I know what her in this world name is. It is, I believe, it is Ariel. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I read didn't read the synopsis, but I think the next episode has that name in it. It might not be her, but I'm pretty sure it probably is.
True.
It might have been like Demon Lord Ariel or something. Would have been the title. I don't remember, but I was pretty confident that was her name.
Yeah, I just remember the one like classification she had that was like Divine Beast of Origin or something like that.
Yeah, there were some weird ones there. My question though, we've seen how tough life has been for Kumiko and how fast she's like progressed. How the fuck did someone who was reincarnated at the same time get so far?
I mean, we don't even know if it's her, if she was a reincarnation.
I feel like the Demon Lord in the future, which is obviously the same girl, has mentioned being a reincarnation. I'm pretty sure.
True, but she might not be from the same batch of reincarnations.
Yeah, I guess it's possible that something happened previously, but from all the information we've been given, this is like the first time this has happened, and it's happened for a very specific reason to that classroom now with the given information.
Yeah.
Which makes me think it has to be someone from the classroom, but who, why, and how did they get this? Obviously, these are questions that will maybe get answered for us next week. Probably not, though. Because as soon as she sees her, the next part is that she attacks Kumiko, and Kumiko just gets absolutely shredded. But as we know from this week's episode, one thing we didn't mention early on is that she has gained the immortality skill. So
yeah, I was kind of curious about how that worked. I was wondering if it was like, is this just a like you don't die of old age immortality, or is this like your bulletproof immortality?
I feel like based off the fact that we just saw her get shredded into multiple pieces, I think it's just going to be full on immortality.
Yeah,
I think
like,
that's. I don't know if she's gonna get, I don't know if she's just going to get reformed back into shape or something, or if she has to like heal back into shape. We don't know how it works yet. But obviously,
does she regen? Does she have to like stitch herself back together? Or
after seeing her get absolutely massacred at the end, unless it's another like bait where in the next episode it turned out to be like another one of her fucking shadow clone jutsus or something. But we've never seen one of those actively get torn apart into like a bloody mess. So it seems like
I feel like they just normally fade away as opposed to.
Yeah. So I mean, that's obviously a big ending because we've always wondered like because we still believe that Kumiko is one of the characters on the the Demon Council, whatever like that. Our main theories right now are pointing to her being, I think, the Shiro is her name, which is just like white for the girl we've seen use the rot eyes and has like the white hair and stuff like that. That's our current number one guess. But either way, we're pretty confident, even if it's not her, that Kumiko is somewhere on that council. And the question is always like, how does this start? How do we go from Kumiko in a dungeon right now to a Kumiko, in 15 years or whatever, on like a council with demons and that kind of stuff? So this has to be the start of that, at least, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah.
I'm also just curious as to why this Demon Lord wants to come down here and just absolutely massacre the spider. Like, if it's even her actually trying to kill the spider, or if it's going to be her trying to recruit it and testing its strength first. Like,
yeah, because at one point in the future, when we saw the hero fighting the White Nightmare, we saw her do something to the White Nightmare remotely because it was getting out of line or getting full of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she's just scared Kumiko's growing too fast.
It could be the same thing. And since she doesn't maybe have the same power right now that she does in 15 years with her, because even if she's grown this much in, I don't know, the couple of months since reincarnating, like, I don't know how long it's been for Kumiko, but it can't be that long. It can only be at most a couple of years. If she's grown this much like the Demon Lord has in the couple of years since reincarnating, I imagine in the next 15 years or however long it is till, we get to the modern time, she's probably gained a lot of power. So maybe, at some point she gains the power to do it remotely. But for now, she's like, I just have to go take care of this myself, maybe. So probably questions that will be answered in the next episode. So obviously look forward to that. Nice little cliffhanger, though. Something we've been curious about for a long time is how we're going to, how we get from point A, which is, current timeline or like, past timeline Kumiko, to point B, which is like the Shun, Hugo, and that kind of stuff timeline. So this is something that's finally looks like it might be starting the bridge in between. So that's exciting. But yeah, if you have any theories about Kumiko, or more importantly, if you want to tell us how wrong our theories are, leave it down below. Of course, always make sure if you're going to type a spoiler that you put a spoiler warning and leave it far enough down below that people can choose to have that spoiler or not. And then, just remember, as always, that even when you put something down below, we're just going to find out about it next week on the episode anyway. So, keep that in mind. That's how it typically goes. You got any closing thoughts for Kumo Desu episode 16?
I think that was everything I wanted to touch base on.
I think we covered everything. I think we covered it in very wrong order. We kind of hopped back and forth. But as I said before, it's the first thing we watch each week now, so it's the farthest from our memory. And we do remember all the important things about the episode. Just sometimes it's like immortality wasn't the first things we saw in the episode, and we didn't think about it till the very end. When it's like, oh yeah, right, she was immortal because she got cut in a bunch of pieces. So yeah, as always, just leave a comment down below, all that kind of stuff about Kumo Desu, and we will be back next week to talk about episode number 17.
Yep.
Okay, next up on the list is My Hero Academia, episode number 94.
Foresight.
So obviously, we're just continuing where we left off last week. It seems very much like it's going to be a two episode thing per group. At least that's based off what we have so far. They could change that, especially when we get to like Midoriya's group and stuff like that. Maybe even when we get to a Todoroki or a Bakugo, which I think should be next, I believe.
Yeah, Todoroki's next week.
So. Yes. So last week it was mainly focused on whatever the hell his name is and whatever the hell his name is. Why can I not think of any of their names right now? The bird guy.
Like
Tokoyami. Him, and then I think the other guy's name was Kurumi or something with Kuro in it.
Kuromi, I think.
The shadow guy. It was a big focus on them, and then the very finale of that episode was introducing, the mushroom girl came up, and then, we're like, hey, Kendo's here too. She's like the brains of the operation. So then this episode, it takes a lot less with Tokoyami and the shadow guy, and we get more focused on Mushroom Girl. We get a little bit of the stupid comic man, or the hell his name is.
Comic Man, yeah.
And then obviously, whatever the fuck her name is. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the invisible girl called her. Yeah, I think she called her like Yao Momo or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
I think she just combined. I think she just like combined two of her names or something like that. But yeah, so we get the little battle between them, obviously just to wrap this up to see who wins. I think we all knew who was going to win this part.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people were probably banking on Class A winning.
I was debating that. I was thinking that Class A was going to win because they never give her a win. Like the closest they've done is her, as we saw in this episode of the flashback, was her fight with Todoroki against the teachers when they were against Eraserhead, and she actually managed to pull it through. But every other time we see her, she loses so fast. Which once again was brought up in this episode when showing back to her, like 1v1 against Tokoyami inside the school arc and stuff like that. But I feel like she never truly gets a win. Like she never feels like whatever her power is like one of the best, and she was one of the two people of the class let in on recommendation for their Class 1A.
Well, there was actually 4 people let in by recommendation.
Yeah, just for Class 1A though. I mean, so she was one of the that's like the best class. We just know it, and she was one of the 2 let in for there, and the other one is arguably one of the strongest guys in the class. But to me, she like loses more than most other characters we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, even when she wins, it's always that like she gets taken out in the process. So
yeah, like people like I don't know the kind of bullshit at the end where it's like, no, she kind of won this in her heart, because I'm like, no, you know what? She fucking didn't win this. She completely lost. It was a 4-0. But like when we see like Kendo's perspective being like, oh, she really like proved herself in this. I'm like, but did she though? Because she lost.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that she slowed Kendo down and she gave her team a chance is something.
I guess,
but it's still not a win.
Yeah, no. The other characters, like, I mean, like the Mushroom Girl, like, let's be honest, her entire point in this was just to be fucking annoying. Like the end part where she released those like smaller mushrooms that I think released some sort of like toxic gas or something that made him choke. Originally, I thought she grew a mushroom in his throat.
She did.
Okay, is that what she did? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought that, and then they showed a scene of like a bunch of these mushrooms on like the side of a pole while she was discussing it. So I'm like, oh, maybe she just released some sort of mushroom that gives off some sort of like gas or odor or something in the air.
Yeah, no, it was literally she was growing those in his throat, like in his windpipe.
Well, that's not very nice. That's kind of fucked.
Yeah.
But in general, for the most part of the episode, she's just kind of a nuisance, right? She's growing mushrooms everywhere.
That's her purpose. So
yeah, it's like to slow them down, to annoy them. It also gives them more view on the invisible girl. Which is kind of important.
Shut her down.
Even though I really still think that she needs something else. I was really hoping that we get to see some power she's developed here, because it's all been about like since we've seen them last fight and stuff like that, they've all developed new powers. Even as we saw them training at the same time, Deku was like developing a shoot style. We saw all of them learning new stuff. What the fuck else does Invisible Girl get? Why does she not at least get like Fantastic Four or Invisible Girl with like invisible force fields and stuff? Like throw something else at us. Like give us an extra power to root for her.
The only thing they've shown with her is she has like light refraction. the blind people.
Yeah, I don't know, not cool enough. She better, I think. You know how like whatever the Uchako, whatever the hell her name is. You know how she kind of went to a hero that was more about like physical close quarter combat and stuff like that. I definitely think that Invisible Girl should be doing the same. Because like if you're invisible, but you're also a fucking monster at close quarter combat, you would just decimate. Like you'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of kicked Comic Man's ass.
Yeah, is that surprising, Jimmy? Is that surprising? Come on, the guy was a fucking loser.
I mean, the guy put in some work.
He did. It's another one of those My Hero characters that like one of the reasons the show got a lot of like recognition early on is like some of the quirks are very funny, right? Like you have the standard characters like Bakugo explosions, Todoroki fire and ice, and just Deku pure strength. But then one of the other fun things about My Hero was you also had these characters with like the stupidest powers ever, like grape juice, like people that their powers are basically useless. But it's also because they're not all supposed to be heroes. This is just a world where a lot of these people are born, but these people decided to be heroes even with the shitty powers they had. And his power is just yelling out like comic book, like, bams and like stuff like that.
Yeah, he yells out onomatopoeias and they become real.
They become real, and he uses it to make like huge walls and stuff like that to block off some of the stadium and stuff like that. Like I'm not saying he wasn't useful in his own sense, but I feel like you would still have very limited stuff you could do with that. I mean, I guess realistically, you could go if someone's stuck on a boat in the water, you could make one of those as a bridge. I don't know, but
I mean, he slapped around Tokoyami a little bit with things like bounce and impede and stuff like that. But
what if he just did death and just kills someone? Like, can he do that?
I think that makes him a villain if he does.
Oh darn. But yeah, I mean, he did his job. He just made one big word there and blocked off the arena, which then Momo whatever had to make the cannon at one point to shoot them the tools they needed. She shot Tokoyami like the glass, the thermo goggles and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like their plan was kind of coming together. But obviously Tokoyami got fucked by the mushrooms by Mushroom Girl, and then even though Momo tried her best to slow her down, I think she like wrapped herself and the cannon around Kendo to make her take as long, even when she went unconscious, to make her take as long as possible to get to them. But she still got there right in time to stop Invisible Girl from kicking Comic Man's ass. And it was a complete shutout. It was a 4-0. So
yep.
Yeah, I didn't believe Class 1A would win this because I didn't think they'd give 1A 2 wins in a row. Because let's face it, right? It's going to be 2 wins for each of them. And then the 5th fight, which is going to be Midoriya versus them, is like that's the most impactful one, right? That's how anime works.
Yeah.
It's not even necessarily that they need to do that because there's not like any sort of thing as to which class wins the most, gets like some sort of prize. It's really just supposed to be training. But in general, I'm going to guess that Todoroki is going to win the next one with his team. They might twist it though, and they might lose, and then Bakugo's team might win. Because I don't think both are going to win. So who do you think is going to lose between Bakugo and Todoroki? Bakugo's stupid.
I'm willing to bet Bakugo's going to win because they just can't let that character lose.
He is stupid, but I think the whole point is he has more natural talent than like any person in that class. Just when it comes to like, even when they show him fight before, it's like, yeah, he's kind of dumb, but he doesn't fall for things twice, and he uses a lot of like mid-air maneuvers and shit like that. Like I think when it comes to actually fighting, he's just the most naturally talented out of them all.
Plus you also have to think about who he's fighting, because I'm pretty sure his team is fighting, I think, the one with like Glue Pot and the fucking welding guy. So
listen, maybe Glue Pot, and maybe glue is the one thing that Bakugo can't explode through. Who knows?
Maybe.
I think that Todoroki in general, we've seen something when he gets like mad kind of thing, and he just like destroys half a stadium with his iced powers and shit. Now that he uses both, he's going to be pretty hard to beat. But one of them has to lose, in my opinion. We have to go 2-2 by the time we get to the 5th bout, which will then be the big one. They might do the classic Pokemon thing where the main character doesn't win in that. It's a little too early to predict who's going to win in that fight. But it's also hard to.
They've already done that with Deku. He's already lost tournaments.
Yeah, I mean he loses. He loses a lot of things. They kind of make him. They give him small victories to remind you that he's like better than people think he should be. Especially early on when he was like not established at all. They make him come first in the one part of the school arc, like the race. But then he's not gonna come first when it comes to like the overall thing. But at the same time, I don't think it's really going to be about him winning anyways. As we've discussed before, it's going to mostly be about him either learning more about the vestiges or just learning, upping his percentage power when it comes to one for all or all for one. Or
he's going to get something in his fight with Shinzo at the end. Like they're not going to let that go.
My question still to this day is that did his hands get healed when he was fighting the one guy and he had Aerie, whatever the hell her name is, on the back, who was, reversing his injuries as he got them. Was she on him long enough to heal his hands?
I want to say yes, because he uses his hands now.
I know, but they haven't shown it since though. And that was that. I think like a lot of people had that question too.
They showed him in the fight with Gentle, didn't they? He was using the shockwaves.
Yeah, but I haven't actually seen his bare hands. Like he still always has like his something on.
Yeah, he has the oh god, what do they call it? Like the assistance tools that they use.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think that's just a curiosity question always, because originally the reason he developed shoot style was because his power was still too strong to use like through his arms, and since your legs are 3 times stronger than your arms, it makes sense. And then B, if he kept using his hands, he would lose full use of them. But if they've now been healed through that fight, I don't know. So maybe we go back.
Yeah, we've seen him a few times where he says like shoot style doesn't mean I can only kick, it just means I primarily kick and then deck somebody. So.
Yeah. Can we talk before we finish up the My Hero part? Can we please talk about the most important part of the episode?
Sure.
The hilariousness of Tokoyami having to seriously say their names in battle. Don't just stop twinkling. As he's like, when he has to like show, I'm like, come on, I would be so fucking mad.
Man.
When it's just so even when he has to say like invisible girl, like while he's like doing this like epic fight kind of thing, I'm like, it just seems so hilarious. But when
invisible girl wasn't as bad as I cannot stop twinkling.
Yeah, when he has to shout that out in like a fight, like all epically, I'm like, come on, dude, you cannot make that sound epic. It just does not work.
Yeah, I don't know why they let that name through.
I would hate him so bad if I ever had to be on his team for anything. Like, I love him as like a character because he's not stupid. He's not as stupid as Grape Juice in my mind. He's just
self-aware. He just doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, I still love back in the last season his like epic moment where he did like the bridge into like the upward laser beam to signal and like make himself be like to get attention on himself. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But I like the effort. But yeah,
but it fucking worked.
That to me was
just the thing.
The absolute best and funniest part of the episode is just having to watch this like edgelord Tokoyami in like an epic moment have to shout out like I cannot stop twinkling in like his like deep voice. Just hilarious. Top tier part of the episode. My Hero Academia 10 out of 10 show.
Yeah, he goes from saying like I'm going to use Fallen Dark Angel.
Because he's all of his moves are such edgelord moves,
Yeah.
But then he just has to yell out I cannot stop twinkling, and it's just hilarious. But I think now that we've discussed the best part, we could probably move on. As always, we know that some of these My Hero Academia episodes probably don't have tons to talk about, but we kind of want to cover them so that when we get to like the end of this kind of battle arc, or even when we get to like the more important fights, you have context for everything else that's happened. Because I think when My Hero Academia has its big moments, they are some of the biggest moments, especially in Shonen.
They are.
And we want to be there for it. So we're going to keep talking about it. If you're a fan of My Hero Academia or you like these episodes, let us know down below. That way we know that some people are here for it, which lets us keep talking about it. And we'll see you next week for episode number 95. Next up on the list, another big one, an anime original, Vivy episode number 6.
Sing My Pleasure - I Love You.
So I want to get this out of the way right away. In this episode, more than ever, they've actually said Vivy. And now I'm thinking it might be Vivy. It's so hard to...
They say it is Vivy.
I listened to it like 3 times because they said it like 3 times in like 2 sentences, and it was like right on the edge each time. I'm like, come on. But like,
it's just that pronunciation where it could go either way.
Well, I've also never seen Vivy spelled like that, which is the other thing, right? It's always Vivi. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm gonna say it's Vivy from now on. We're just gonna full out. If you know or you have guesses, let us know down below. This is the most important comment of the day.
Correct our pronunciation for us, please.
Now, I don't know how you're going to know any more than us, realistically. It's an anime original. We've seen all the episodes so far. But if you at least have an opinion, if you think it's Vivy or Vivy after hearing it, let us know down below, because that's super important. But in general, this episode, we are continuing off the what do they call it? Like the island.
Oh, Metal Float.
Metal Float. We're continuing off the Metal Float arc, and as we expected for the most part, it seems like another 2-episode arc.
Yeah, because it did conclude this episode.
Yeah,
so it would be a 2-episode
so
arc.
Typically so far, we had a guess last week where just based off context of what we've had so far, we're predicting that most of these arcs are going to be 2 episodes. Maybe as we get into bigger ones, they start going up a little bit. But so far, it seems like 2 episodes is like the sweet spot for the arcs. So last week, she was given a program by the guy and his AI wife that she would put into one of the machines, and it would shut down the whole Metal Float.
Yeah.
They're trying to shut it down because its growth has happened too fast. It's already 20 years ahead of its time. And, with the whole thing about them making AI parts and all that kind of shit, shutting it down is a good idea. And he's trying to shut it down for... Did we really get a reason? We get a reason in this episode. But before this, did we really know why he wanted to shut it down? He gave some sort of like bullshit excuse. He said I love AIs, but like it's just this is too much too fast kind of thing or something. Some bullshit excuse that nobody bought.
Yeah. The excuse he gave was that he felt it was just too advanced, and that he didn't really go beyond that. They just kind of took him at his word. And
yeah, he pretty much, I think he just said like, I love AIs too, and like, I don't, like obviously I'm married to an AI, so I must love them, but like it's it's too much too fast for this island. It's just we're not ready for this yet.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, like sure, dude, we don't give a fuck what your bad excuse is. We have your program now, so that's all we need. So upon going to the metal float, they put in the program. All the fucking AIs go absolutely insane. And I think the last thing they do in that episode is they start attacking the human boats that are coming for them.
All the drones start going suicidal and just like just torpedoing the boats. So.
Yeah, and then Vivy Diva jumps into the water and rescues, pulls them out and pulls out the main guy we've seen now in every single arc, who's a member of Toke. Yeah. And then so this episode starts off with her talking to him, and they're trying to figure out what exactly happened. I mentioned it last week, but I like the dynamic with this guy, right? Meeting him every single arc in like multiple years. It's always a fun thought because you wonder, like, he's got to be important to, I think, like the ending arc.
Probably, yeah.
And each time we see him, he hates Diva or hates Vivy, but he kind of has to, like, even in this one, we finally see him slightly work with her.
Yeah, he kind of accepts that she isn't necessarily bad. She isn't necessarily completely contrary to him. So.
Well, yeah, that's it. They have the exact same goal in this episode, but he like doesn't want to accept that because after she rescues him, he's obviously mad. He knows immediately who she is. And he's just like, oh, well, like, what are you doing here? And they're like, well, we tried to use the program to shut down the thing. He's like, why do you want to shut it down? And then she's like, none of your fucking business. And then, he's like, I think he asked her too. He's like, oh, you're Diva from like the Neo place or like that, like the singer. He's like, your mission is like to, make people happy or whatever. It's your mission is like singing. Why the fuck are you here? Like, why are you at all these different places? And she just kind of gives her like excuse again, like, oh, my mission is like to make people happy with song. And he's like, but like she's like, I'd be happy if like you were alive kind of thing. She's like, so I'd be happier if you live. And then she runs to go fight, and as she goes to go fight the robots, at one point she gets like grabbed by one of them. Looks kind of like she's getting a little bit fucked, and then he shoots it, showing that he's supporting her slightly. He's at least on her side for this specific fight, so he kind of supports her.
Which I do want to note, that was one hell of a handgun that it just blew that thing apart with one shot.
I mean, to be fair, he is part of an organization that kills AIs. So whatever handguns they have, I'm assuming he's using.
I'm assuming, I'm surprised we never actually got to see them use this stuff before.
Yeah, it might just be it might not even be like a classic 9mm handgun. Like it might just be like a better handgun with bigger bullets and stuff like that.
He might have just been a lucky shot too. I don't.
Yeah, he could have gone right for the weak spot. Maybe it has like its one little button right in its head, and he aimed right for it. But either way, I think the most important thing about this episode, obviously, is that we get to learn the reason why the one character wants to destroy the metal float, which is, in general, he loved an AI. So when he was a kid, his mom abandoned him. Yeah. We don't get to see exactly what happened. Like, he was in the hospital, and he wakes up, and he's like, hey, where's my mom? And the AI is like, listen, I'm going to be fucking real with you here. Your mom's all sorts of gone. She left to go live with her new family. And, he starts crying, very upset, and she comes over and sings him a beautiful song, a song that she's heard from Diva, because she's another one of the Diva sisters, the most advanced AI that they have kind of thing.
Yeah, fully autonomous AI.
Yeah, so she goes over, sings him a beautiful song, and then, the next scene with them, he's older, he comes back to meet her. She remembers who he is. He's still thankful for, her help when he was a kid. And then, he wants to marry her, in the next scene. So we see him asking her to marry him. She's like, yeah, I'll marry you because, like, I need to make humans happy kind of thing. And he's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. She's like, but it specifically has to be you as well. She's like, I wouldn't just marry anybody because of this. He's like, okay, like, dope. But as she says yes, he gets a call. The news came out that, the whole thing with Estelle and the space island, or the fuck it was, the sunrise.
Yeah, sunrise.
That everything like that happened, and now the Diva sisters are being like praised, right? They're because now they're like saving humans. They're going beyond their one mission in a sense too, which I think was the big deal. So what they now want to use Grace to run the metal float and give her a new mission. So it's not as simple as that though. I think he mentions that by like giving her a new mission, they overwrite her last one, which is basically like changing her soul.
Yeah, which I am kind of curious about the logic here. They went, we need to run this autonomous island. The sisters seem pretty cool. Instead of making a new one,
Yeah.
they rewrite a nurse AI.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, but like once again, we don't know all the things. Maybe like making them isn't that easy. It's almost like they want to. I don't know. I feel like early on they should have given some sort of explanation, like more explanation for the Diva sisters. Like they should have been like, oh, they could only make like 9 of them or something. So as the show goes on, we get to see more introduced. Because right now it just seems like anytime the plot needs it, there'll be a Diva sister. So why couldn't they just make a new one for the fucking metal float with that job?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, we don't know. Unfortunately, that's not really told to us. It seems like to me that you would just make a new AI and make their mission from making them to, keep this metal float going and all that kind of stuff. Instead of being like, hey, that nurse is pretty good at her job. What if we just change her entire job? And they're like, that makes sense.
Really?
So they
even Matsumoto said, like, oh, she was described as like an angel in white, and it's like, what makes you think they're going to be good at running industrial machinery?
Yeah, so basically they, as the guy explains, they basically overwrite her mission, which like changes your soul. Like the AIs have like their one thing, which is their mission. So if you take that away, then they become like a new person. So he in general wanted to go there. The grace that we've seen him with was just like a fake copy. He wants to go and extract the graces from the metal float's like mind and put it into this grace to like remake his his wife kind of thing.
Yeah.
They took Grace, they made her like the core of the entire metal float. And then, obviously that's a cute little plan. He just wants his wife back, no big deal. But as Matsumoto and even Diva start to realize it's not possible, she's like gone. It's been like too long. Her, same thing. Once her mission was overwrit, and now she's like a new person, new soul, whole different person.
Yeah. They even describe how basically her AI has been spread to everything in this island since she's running everything.
Yeah. So like every bit of her is like a piece.
Yeah, so consolidating that all into one AI is just not going to happen.
Yeah, so. And they try to explain that to him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to stop you because I want my wife back." And he sends his little robot, his Grace clone, after Diva, and then she just okay. Listen, I feel like that was a little harsh by her. She could have. She didn't have to absolutely massacre it. It just goes to attack her. And she just literally fucking smacks its head off, and then she turns around all serious, and she basically explains. And this is where now we finally, after 6 episodes, she's like, "I'm not Diva right now." She basically has 2 personalities now, in a sense.
Yeah, we have Vivy, whose job is to like stop the war in the future, and then we have Diva, who actually sings.
Yeah, at one point, I think Vivy literally said that her mission now is to stop an AI, or like should basically stop like some sort of disastrous future from happening. So as we've kind of seen, they mentioned in this episode that like people are praising the sisters because they have this like they have this some sort of better ability to like either accomplish a mission or something else. But now Diva is basically splitting herself into 2 different people, and each of them have a separate mission. So she's just becoming a human slowly. But yeah, I don't know. It was a cool scene where she absolutely just fucking smacks the Grace clone's head off. And very serious. And he's very sad. This is also important because we see him pull a gun out at her. Not that it's going to do anything. But the having the gun is important for later. So either way, she runs away. And now that she's decided this, even you get to even see like Matsumoto's face when he realizes that he's like, oh, as she's like, I'm I'm Vivy or Vivy or whatever like that. Like, this is my mission. And then because she's like, I'm not gonna let you bring her back. Like, she's gone. I'm gonna go destroy this core kind of thing. And then fucking Matsumoto makes a bunch of little mini Matsumotos, and they become a fucking flying space bike, and the whole thing just gets super fucking epic for a couple minutes.
Yeah, it was such a shift in tone.
It was so like, I swear to God, my internet has been being shit for the past couple days, but I swear to God, when all this started happening, I lost quality on the video. It was just too much.
Same.
It was too much. She gets on the bike. She's flying through this area. There's fucking robots exploding all around her. She's doing tons of insane shit. And my thing just went down to like 360p. I'm like, okay, like, but we get the same song that we've heard a lot playing, but now it's like now it's more of a bop, Yeah. Even I'm pretty sure like my wife was sleeping beside me, and I was just fucking like bopping along with the music. Like I was like pushing her as the music was going crazy. And then, she gets there. And at one point, it looks like, she has to take out a robot, and she gets a little bit injured while fighting it, and she doesn't know where the core is. And that's kind of where the guy comes back around, and he's like, this sucks. He's like crying while he's doing it, but he gives her, he sends her over like the information as to where the core is, realizing that he's basically being like, okay, you're going to go kill my wife, but like, you know, he accepts it, but he's like very sad. He's like crying about it. His life sucks, but he kind of accepts that it's just what needs to be done. So then Diva goes in, finds the core, and just fucking rocket punches her right through the chest.
Yeah, she specifically activates the anti-personnel combat protocol for it too.
Yeah,
which just seems like overkill.
Yeah, it goes a little insane because this person's not moving. You know, she's just chilling there, but she goes through, just hand through the chest, and then the entire place shuts down. It all goes down, and then, you know, she goes back to the guy, and he basically, you know, she's like, you know, I shouldn't have the right to say this because of this. She's like, but I want you to be happy. And I think in like his own sense, he basically explains how he can't be happy. You know, and then Diva turns around, and we hear a nice fun gunshot. You know, I think we all knew what that meant because we've all seen anime or anything before. She turns around, he's obviously shot himself in the head, killing himself. And then I think the best part of this is then when she goes over to like help him, and she looks at the hands, and she's got like one blue hand with like the blood of like the AI, and then the one red hand with like the blood of the human, and she starts fucking panicking for a second, and that's like the end of the episode.
Yeah, something definitely snapped in her at that moment, but I'm not really sure how that's going to manifest going forward.
I don't know. It's just a cool scene though. Like, you know, obviously it sucks that guy had to die, and it's to him, and it kind of proves that, you know, anything, you know, like I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who, if the one person I loved died, whether it's an AI or a person, you know, it's cool that he like looks at AIs like that well. But to him anymore, it's not that he can just make another AI or fall in love with a different AI. It was like that was just the one, whether human or AI. It was just his wife. So.
Yeah, you have to remember, Grace was the one who was there for him when his mother literally abandoned him to go live with a different
little
family.
Weird of Grace, by the way. She met him as a child. When that happens in other things, we frown upon that. And just because she's an AI doesn't mean I'm going to change things. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
That's like the classic.
Waited until he was
it's
an
like
adult.
the classic, like, you know, you find there's like a story where like a old man finds a kid or something like that, and then he raises her to become strong, and then later they start dating. It's like, no, that's not okay, and it's not okay for AIs either. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, sad. But I definitely did like the visual scene of just her with the two hands, you know, the one blue, the one red. Very cool. Anime. This episode had like the two different types of song. You know, had like the diva song, but I think even in the credits it was Grace's version. You know, of the nice Her Pleasant singing it, and then it had the obvious like super bop while she's fucking space bike riding to go destroy her. I mentioned this last week. The music's always really good. Obviously, it is about an idol, so.
Yeah, the audio design is on point, so there's no denying.
Yeah. So. Did you watch the next week episode? Like, did you watch? I
didn't actually.
It seems like there's a new, like, obviously, it doesn't give you ever enough information to figure what it's about.
No,
it's like I'm assuming it's another one of Diva's sisters. It's the black-haired one.
Yeah, it's like the little idol of small stages or something like that.
Something like that. So I'm excited to see where they go with that. You know, I'm excited to see how many years in the future it is. Like when Matsumoto comes back, it has to be like, hey, like this time this fucking idol actually throat punches a little girl in the throat or something like that. So we have to stop that, or else people will hate idols. You know, I'm excited to see what the next little arc is.
Yeah, I'm curious about the fallout from this episode because AIs killed humans.
Yeah,
which apparently has never happened before. So.
Yeah, you know, it's just a couple of them anyways, but there's going to be a fallout, but I wonder if maybe it'll set back the timeline a little bit more realistically to where it should be, because obviously because of how good the AIs have been with the whole Estelle saving the sunrise kind of situation, stuff has moved forward by about 20 years. Maybe this will set it back an extra 10 years. Who knows? Kind of even it a little bit. It'll keep the change. But yeah, obviously, very good show so far. I'm loving it. The animation is fantastic. The robot fights are dope. The songs, crazy good. It's just been entertaining the entire time, and I think that even like last week I didn't necessarily love the first episode, like the metal float arc, but I think like the first episode in the 2-episode arc thing is always just like all set up, and then the second episode is just fucking fantastic, which I'm okay with.
That's usually the case, so I'm not going to complain about that.
I feel like a typical anime arc is like 5 okay episodes and then 1 good episode. I'm okay with 1 okay episode and then 1 good episode immediately.
Yeah, true. It's a nice change from the standard formulas. So
yeah, so it's been working well. If you're a fan of Vivy, I think a lot of people are. We had a lot of votes for it. Obviously, there was the big misconception when the anime was first shown about it being, you know, an idol anime. Because the description did not sell it. They literally could have said it is like fucking idol Terminator kind of thing, and I think that it would have done a lot better. But
that is true.
Either way, it's been a crazy good watch so far. I still don't know how many episodes. It still seems like a 1-season type of show, but, you know, who knows? Might not be.
Yeah, it might be a stretch to keep it going, but I'm perfectly happy with just a really good one season series. So.
Yeah, I think that sometimes that is what anime needs. I think anime is
Yeah.
too often looked upon as those things that don't end. When you have shows like One Piece,
Yeah.
even when like Naruto finally ended after like 600 episodes, then they start Boruto and it kind of like loses like the epic ending they had. I think that anime already has like a
Yeah.
bad name for that. So when they come out with like short and sweet anime, I think it really does a lot.
Yeah, you need those,
Especially because I think like an anime like this is one of those ones where eventually people who aren't fans of anime could get into. You know, it's like an Attack on Titan in a sense. It's not all it's more like worldwide for one, so it's not all Japanese. It's more like worldwide in general. It has a plot that is very much, as we mentioned, like more like a Western movie plot in a sense. You know, stuff has like iRobot elements, Terminator elements, stuff like that. Like, you know, has those good action scenes, which I think is kind of important. It looks really good. I think that if it ends in like the one season and it does well through the whole thing, it could be one of the shows that eventually even people who aren't fan of animes could be like, hey, I watched this show called like Vivy and it was pretty good. So, you know, what other anime will I like kind of thing. So hopefully, but if you have any comments or thought or anything like that down below about Vivy, leave it down below. We will be talking about it till the end of the season anyways, or the end of the show, depending on what it is. And I'm excited. And we'll get back to it next week with episode number 7. Next up on the list, another big one. Another one that we had plenty of votes for, which is the 86, episode number 4.
Real name.
So pretty much exactly what we thought from last week. Obviously, last week we finished with the fallout between Laughing Fox, I believe his name is, kind of absolutely shit talking. I mean, I think that the acceptable name for her is like Lena. I believe her name. I believe her name's like Milens or something like that, and then a super fucking long last name that I'm not going to remember.
Yeah, but she says just call me Lena. So
yeah, so it you know, the fallout between her after the death of, I'm not going to say the one girl's name, Kirschblut or something. I don't know. It's
Hirschblut.
Yeah, it's a name I don't want to say. But either way, the fallout after her death, with Laughing Fox kind of just absolutely shit talking her, being like, yeah, you know, like we put up with your stupid talk to us each day shit because it doesn't matter to us. But like now's not the time. You know, we just had this person die, and you don't even fucking think of us as real people. You haven't even taken the time to ask our real name. And obviously, Lena's just like crying at this time. And then, like every other episode, we see elements of the show both in her perspective and in like the team's perspective, which I've still been liking. Sometimes they cross over a little bit too, which is always nice.
Yeah, I think the resolution of this episode, we actually got to see the two kind of converge and just go with both sides.
I believe the episode starts off with the same conversation from last week. It's just in Laughing Fox's perspective. Yeah. It's just him getting mad. We see like, you know, he like takes the button off his coat. He's getting real pissed. And then we see him talking to his squad, and you know he feels guilty about it, not necessarily about what he said. Yeah. And even other people in the squad aren't like shaming him for what he said because they all have like the same opinion. But he feels like guilty about like the way he said it, and he mentions that like his mentor, when he's like, do you think like my mentor would have said it? And then even like Shin's like, no, he wouldn't have said it like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he's feeling a little bit guilty or like ashamed of like the way he went about it. But either way, like it's not that him or anyone else there doesn't agree with what he said. It's just more of like the how he said it kind of situation. You know, and then we get to see Lena after what she was told, you know, trying to speak to her friend about it, and we're seeing more perspective on like how kind of shitty the world is, or like, you know, even like her friend, who's a character that I feel like we're supposed to like, or we've been supposed to like from all the conversations, is basically just like, you know, suck it up, like the world's not going to change, like stop even thinking about this, like stop being upset, just eat some fucking pudding with me, and you know, go on dates and have fun in life instead of like thinking about these people who there's nothing you can do to change.
Yeah, except that the world isn't going to change and that there's nothing one person can do to alter it is
and then even
kind
then,
of the whole message here.
Yeah, because then even then we see her talking with her uncle again. He's saying the exact same thing. He's like, listen, he's like, your dad was like a good person. He was a great man, but he was also like a fucking dumbass. Like he literally put your life in danger and his own life. He died because of this ideal of like wanting, basically like feeling bad in a sense for like the other side, because you know he still didn't actively really do anything. His sense of doing something was like going to see the battlefield himself to like show how bad it was, but it's not like he's actually like fighting in the battle or anything like that. So the uncle's basically saying like, yeah, like listen, your dad was a good person, but like he died because of his ideals and he almost got you killed of it without really doing anything. He didn't change anything.
Yeah,
he didn't affect
he even
anything.
said he died because he felt only 86 would die in the battlefield.
Yeah,
he didn't realize that he was actually in danger going there. So
yeah, and then we do see like the flashback to what happened. He decided to take her on a helicopter ride to show it. Even early on, she mentions, they're like, "Oh, have you ever seen Like, have you ever left or anything like that or seen a battlefield? And she's like, once, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, assuming that's probably the time. But then we see like a helicopter crash, and so, you know, he dies from that, and it's basically just everyone on her side being like, hey, listen, like, even if you don't agree with it, like, what can you do about it? Like, are you going to go there yourself and start fighting with them? Probably not. So, like, you might as well just stop thinking about it because there's nothing you can do. And we see her having a hard time dealing with that. And, you know, she goes for the walk. She goes to visit, like, her dad's grave. And on her walk, she decides to, you know, call up the Reaper, and basically be like, hey, like, you know, I'm sorry for that. Like, and she's like, can you tell me, you know, your real names? And Shin's like, I wouldn't like worry about it. Like, you know, don't really bother. It's fine. And she's like, no, like please do it. He's like, okay. And then he starts like listing off names, and she pulls out her notebook and starts writing it down. And
I was actually kind of surprised at how he just like jumped into like, okay, call sign this is this name. Like, the fact that he just started giving it out without even asking them first.
Yeah, I mean,
zero fucks given.
I guess like this whole team trusts him as like a leader anyway, so I feel like they would stand by any decision he makes. Plus, you got to remember that when he's doing this, he's like he's in the room with all of them.
Was he?
I think so. Or he was like, or shortly after, because even later they knew.
Yeah. When afterwards he was. I think he started the conversation while he was in his room.
Yeah, but at some point he like walked in. But there are other important parts too. Like, she starts asking more about like in general, like him and the 86 and that kind of stuff. And he tells her about the whole system where, you know, when someone dies, he carves their name into a piece of like their mech or their armor like that, and then he keeps them. And he's been doing that because he's the one who's around the longest.
Yeah, specifically because they're not given graves, they're not given any type of recognition, so he carries the names with them.
Yeah, it's like they carry the names with them until they get to like the end kind of situation. Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, how many like do you have?" And he's like 500 and something. And she's like, "Oh, damn."
Yeah,
and
531, I think it was.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, so that's why they call you the Undertaker." And he's like, "Yeah." So you know, she learns a little bit more about him, and then obviously she's like, "Oh, can you connect me?" She's like, I want to like ask the other people their names kind of thing, or like I want to talk to them. And then I was a little bit confused with this because he's like, okay, I'll patch you in right now. And she's like, no, like not. And then like, does she hang up?
I think he disconnects her and goes to talk to them.
Okay, and then
then he gets them all together in the room, and then he calls her back.
Okay, I thought she like panicked because she wasn't ready, so she like hung up, and then she calls back a couple seconds later after she like gets more composed or something. Because that's what it kind of looked like.
I think there was a pretty hefty wait there too, because she like changed positions, like you could see the moon moved. I think. Mm-hmm. So
okay, so I mean that kind of makes sense. But I did like even in that part where he's mentioning that they don't get graves. You know, she's looking up at like the grave of like her dad kind of thing, or like the You know, at least in general, she's still seeing like the difference between their two societies. You know, she thinks her life is hard even just while she has to because her dad died just at his grave. But you know, at least her dad got a grave. So
yeah.
But yeah, then it goes into her talking with them all. She starts off by talking to Laughing Fox, who, you know, I still like their candor with her. You know.
He's like, they're very much like, listen, we're going to tolerate you and it'll kill time, but...
Yeah, because even it starts off by Laughing Fox being like, she's like, oh, I want to know your name. And she's like, I already know that Shin told you our names. And she's like, yeah, but I want to hear it from each of you. And then he still kind of, he goes off on her a little bit again, but like more in like a playful way this time. I feel like he just accepted the fact he was kind of a dick. And then at the end, he's like, but like, you know, this is my name or whatever like that. And then, you know, it goes around the room. And then the second guy he goes to is like I think he's Black Dog, I believe is
yeah, Black Dog, yeah.
And he's just like 100. He's just 100% serious. He's like, listen. He's like, yeah. I can't remember exactly what he says, but he's basically just like he was just very serious with her. He's like, listen. He's like, if you want to call us each day to like make yourself feel better like that, he's like, that's fine. He's like, you know, but we like you're still, you know, we still think of you as a pig, or like, you still think of us as pigs or something like that, and we still think of you like this, and like that's not going to change and all this kind of stuff. And it's a very serious thing he's mentioning, and everyone's like kind of quiet, and then she just like laughs. And she's like, yeah, I will still call you. And he's like, okay, that's like your choice kind of thing. And then it goes through, really. And then it just goes through everyone like just saying their names kind of thing, even though she already heard it.
A little like, hey, I'm so and so. One thing you did skip over is Laughing Fox talks about his mentor.
Yeah, that he was one of them. He not like I don't remember what they call their race or their people or like that, but like the same as like Lena, you know, platinum haired folk who sounds like
former soldier decided to fight.
Yeah, he decided to fight and he died kind of thing. So that's pretty interesting. I feel like maybe we'll get like a flashback with more of that later, or it'll be a person maybe like Lena knows, or because did she? No, she didn't mention she knows him. That was later, but it might be someone that she's heard of or something like that. But yeah, it's just like it's a nice scene of them all introducing, but there's still like the fact is, even though she's getting their real names, they're all admitting that like their relationship hasn't really changed, right? Like you know, they don't they don't like care. She's like, you don't care about, or they're like, you don't care about us, we don't care about you. You're only doing this like to make yourself feel better, but the fact that there's nothing you can do about it, even if like you wanted to, kind of situation. But they're like, yeah, we'll still like placate you and give you our names because it doesn't really do anything against us, kind of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, so I mean, it's still like a baby step into getting a little bit farther in their like relationship, but not by much. Plus, I still feel like there's a lot with Shin that isn't real. I feel like Shin's being like has been too nice in general, too like understanding and stuff like that. For someone who's like been there like the longest in like a sense, or like probably done the most, I feel like he probably hates them more than anyone else. But he like keeps it like really low, keeps it deep within himself.
Yeah. He seems to like almost measure himself with everything he does, but he seems to do it effortlessly. That makes sense.
And then like the ending of it is basically as he's walking, down, she's like, oh, like I just realized that, I never asked your name. So he gives her his name. And then she's like, she recognizes like the last name. She's like, oh, like this is your last name. He's like, yeah, it is. And she's like, oh, do you know this guy? And then, he gets some flashbacks quickly that, and then he like does like a pretty sinister smile. In my mind, it looked pretty sinister, and then he's like, "That's my brother," kind of thing, and that's where like the episode ends. So I'm wondering if next episode we get like a flashback information about his brother, or if they're keeping that, and maybe it's just him finishing the conversation with her. But
maybe the way he smiled, I'm not sure if that's like a childlike, like, oh my god, that's my brother, I love him, or if that's a like, what the fuck is wrong with this situation?
Yeah, it looked too sinister. I would love to say it's just like a him thinking back on his brother and giving like a nice smile, being like, "Oh, I haven't thought about him in a while" or something. But it looked more sinister. So I still think that he hates them even more than anyone else from like all he's seen, all he's been through. Obviously, some sort of backstory with his brother, but he keeps it like deeper down. He doesn't show his emotions like the other people. I feel like he placates her more than anyone else. Because even, since she first introduced himself, he was always nice to her and that kind of stuff, which just didn't really fit in with me, didn't like make sense. And for the most part, everybody there was kind of laughing, being like, oh, it's kind of like a joke that they treat her like nice, or that they're like, kind to her, even though they hate her. It was like the joke. But I mean, he seems less in on it than everybody else, which makes me think he's even more in on it,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we'll find out more about next episode. Obviously, there's something with his brother from the flashbacks. Obviously, we can tell something happened. Especially since his brother isn't there. So I'm going to tell you right now, his brother's dead, but how he died, especially considering the fact that like, you got to remember that the 86 in general, like people don't know their names, and people don't even consider them human. So how does she know the name of this kid?
Yeah. I'm willing to bet that brother is going to be the one who saved her on the battlefield when that helicopter went down.
Yeah. Something like that. Or, like, either like, I don't know, or maybe he's a hero or something like that, or maybe he's just one that was really known. But yeah, there's a good chance that when the helicopter crashed and her dad died, he like rescued her or something, and that's how she knows him. Either way, we'll probably be finding more about it next episode. I can only guess, even if it's just it might not be like a full flashback, but he might just explain it's his brother. He might be like, how do you know her or him? And she might be like, oh, when I was a kid, he rescued me, kind of thing. And that's like one of the reasons that she doesn't consider the 86 non-human, both from her dad's ideals and like mixed with meeting one and kind of thing. So
yeah, because she even talks about how that's kind of one of the reasons she's so adamant on treating them as good as she can.
Yeah,
but she met one of them and they were like, okay, yeah, no, we're all even. Like, there's no reason to segregate.
Yeah, as soon as you meet one, you start to really put a face to the person, and you realize they're human. It's like the equivalent of if they're making a comparison to pigs, right? Yeah, like pigs are bad or like that, but as soon as you name a pig, you're gonna want to kill that thing and eat it a lot less. It's just it's like anything, right? It's like you find a stray cat, your parents are like, hey, don't name that cat, because if you name that cat, you're not going to want to get rid of it. So her actually meeting an 86, getting a name, that kind of stuff, very much would change her thoughts about them not being people, I imagine. But
that's true.
We'll probably learn more about that next time. In general, I know a lot of people really want us to talk about the 86, and I can see why. I've made this comparison probably every episode, but I'm still getting the Code Geass feels. I think it has a lot less like battle and a lot less drama or like dramatics than like Code Geass right now. But in general, it has a lot of the same themes. Like we have to deal with basically these people being looked at as non-human. I'm excited to get more of that. And from what I've heard, I think from the last week's comments is that this is something like the manga or whatever is still ongoing. So I don't think it's going to be a single season show. So I think that it has a lot of room to grow and a lot of room for the plot to change. Because I don't think the entire show will just be them doing stuff and her on the one side. I feel like eventually we'll get to the point where maybe they meet up somehow.
They have to meet. They have to connect at some point. So,
I'm excited to get there. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I know there was a comment last week where I think the person I don't think it was on last week's episode. It might have been on the one we were talking about it. But someone was saying they don't really understand. Like they're kind of disappointed by the 86. And I think a lot of that right now is just that it's slow building, right? Like, like even if you consider the last episode, if you consider the last episode and this episode, a lot of it is just trying to get this like connection between the two different sides of the characters, because it's hard to do, right? It's not just like the characters wouldn't just meet and then they become close. They live in such different worlds. One is basically in like a sense almost like their boss, who literally cares nothing about them, kind of thing for the most part, as far as they know. So they have to take more time to develop the characters. Especially because we can already guess that we're going to be losing a lot of the 86 characters, and if they don't take time, if they don't take time to develop them in like a sense, we're not going to feel bad whenever it happens.
That's true. There's a lot of unnamed characters who don't have any real claim to screen time at this point, so they're probably going to get guffed. But...
yeah, like I mean, like, but even in this episode, we learn more about like Laughing Fox and a little bit more about like the Black Dog and stuff like that. Like we learn more about some of these side characters that now, if in like 3 episodes from now, the Laughing Fox kid, if he dies, so we're gonna be like, oh shit. I'm sad at that now because I liked that character. He had growth in those last episodes. So I think that you just have to accept that we're only 4 episodes in. Shit has to go a little slow. But then once it picks up, I think it's going to get like really crazy. So, if you're unsure about the anime, just keep watching. I think it's definitely too early to stop it. And I think a lot of other people are really enjoying it so far, if you just like the emotional aspects to it. And you can tell it's going to have some big emotional, like, twists and stuff like that later on. So we'll look forward to it.
It's going to have a few gut punches for us.
So. Oh, for sure. But we will be finding out more about those gut punches in future episodes. So stick with us and leave us a comment down below if you have any thoughts, opinions, or anything on the 86. Okay, next up on the list is Tokyo Revengers, episode number 4.
Return.
So I think Tokyo Revengers is a weird one for me. I keep like, I don't know what it is about it, but there's like a thing each week where I'm like, I don't know 100% if I'm like loving Tokyo Revengers, but then I watch the episode and I really enjoy it. So it's kind of strange to describe because I feel like it's one of the last things I watch each week. But it's like even like this episode alone, like there was so much that happened in it. I think a lot of it is just because I can't like peg like the format of the show. Yeah,
it's definitely unique. The storytelling mechanic isn't anything original, but the character's attitude and the way they kind of bounce back and forth is.
Well, because even then, right, like that when we first went in, I was like, okay, so he's gonna go back in time. And he's going to be back in time until he like solves the issue. But then at like the end of like the one episode, he goes right back. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So he went back to the future to get information to now he can go back in the past again to fix it. And he's going to be there now until then. And then in this episode today, he goes back to the future part. And I'm like, okay, fuck. Like now I'm just like, is this just going to be like every couple episodes he's going back and forth? Because that seems like broken to me because you could literally just go back, try one thing to see if it fixes it, go forward. And then be like, hey, did this fix it? And they're like, no, that didn't fix it. You're like, oh fuck, okay, let me go back. Let me try this other thing.
Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna get. We're gonna get him go back. He's gonna change something, and then he's gonna come back and see what's actually been altered.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just gonna get like a step-by-step progress. Like he's gonna go back and do something to save one person. Come back, the girl's gonna still be dead, and he's gonna have to go back and try again.
I'm also a little bit confused because one thing we learned in this is that one, he's like the time he is back in the past, he is still in the future. He's just like his body's unresponsive. So, he spent like a week back there the entire time he's been in the present time, just like unconscious, like basically no soul in his body for a week, being kept alive by like, Naoto had him on like IV machines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the other thing though was that there's one thing that was weird because Naoto mentioned in this when he went to the future that originally, Akun or whatever like that stabbed him, went to jail, but now he isn't in jail this time, which means that he remembers the other timeline.
Yeah, I think that might be because he's involved in the time travel mechanic. He might be immune to the alteration.
I hope so, because I'm like, so like you can just remember the other timeline. I was like, that seems a little broken. But I think that one of the big issues is that I have, and this is an issue with a lot of time travel stuff, and even someone in the last week comments, I think they mentioned, they're like, I agree with Cam on this because we talked about this last week. I do not feasibly think that it would be this hard to change the outcome. I think that, and it's just something I have to accept because that's obviously like, yes, it's the main plot of the show, but it's not the main point. Even in this episode, we learn that it's not just about saving like Hina, like his little girlfriend. There's like a lot of people to save, and like, he has the ability to do it kind of thing. Because like realistically, as I mentioned last week, it would be so easy for the brother, even as a cop, or even if he wasn't a cop, to just not get his sister to go out that day. Kind of thing. Like, he's okay with having Takemichi go back and kill a kid. So like Takemichi's life would be over from killing this dude to stop his sister. But he wouldn't like tie his sister to a chair for a day to stop her from going out. Like,
I mean, you technically wouldn't even have to go that far. You could literally just like, hey, can we go get dinner instead or something like
yeah,
that.
but I mean, let's just say for a second that she is dead set on going to this place. She would rather like skip on anything else in the world. He could literally drug her for one day. He could like put her to sleep for a single day, and like, you know, she might not even notice. He might just be like, oh, you like fell sick or something like that. But he's okay with having this kid go back to possibly ruin his life by murdering someone, and there's no feasible way he could have stopped his sister from dying.
Apparently, yeah.
It's just one of those things. So I'm like, I don't know. It's one of the things, but I think this episode fixed it a little bit in like a sense where it's not just about her. There's like a lot that he can solve now that he's met people like Mikey, and he can kind of see that like Mikey is like a good person in his own way. Yeah. And it was clearly just something went wrong along the way. He wants to help him too. Like, you know, he wants to save his life from being bad. We see like his, you know, one of his best friends at the time, because of something he changed. I mean, either way, his friend was fucked because in the original timeline, Akun stabs Kiyomasa from, you know, after kicking the one dude's ass, and then because of that he goes to jail, and then even when he gets out of jail he just becomes like a low criminal, like kind of like a scumbag criminal.
Yeah,
he's like
he's a no-name punk is how he's described.
Yeah, so. But instead in this timeline he didn't stab him, but since, you know, because now they kind of got close with Mikey and his crew, he also got a higher up, and now he lives a much better criminal life. You know, he's running this like what is it, a hostess bar, and, you know, but we see that his life isn't like good. You know, he's there, he's got the shaved head, he's got the tattoos, it looks like he's like a lot thinner, he has like the, you know, you can see like his like cheekbone lines and stuff like that.
Yeah, a little gaunt, but
and obviously he's not living a happy life, so either way he's kind of fucked. So it's just, you know, to me, it's the fact of time travel normally is that as a viewer you can always think of 37 easier ways to solve a time travel issue than the movies or the anime ever make it. But you just kind of got to you got to get over that. You just got to look past it.
Yeah. Plus, there's always the idea that if you're the one actually in the situation, you're not going to be thinking as cleanly as the person who's in that situation.
I know, but one of them, Naoto, is literally, I could believe Takemichi not thinking about this because he's kind of stupid, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Intelligence isn't his thing, but Naoto already has this like huge web and all this information. He's been studying for years as to how he can save this, and not for a single second did he think about like throughout 20 years. Or like, you know, I guess after it happened at least, you know, because Takemichi, the big mistake first is that Takemichi did not give enough details. Because A, at that point, he still thought it was like a dream. And B, he didn't think that like, you know, it's unlikely that the Naoto character as a kid would even believe him.
Yeah, that was the big thing. Because I don't think he probably believed him until his sister actually died.
Yeah. But the thing
he might have still become a cop, but
yeah, he might have still be like, he could have still became a cop, and he just like, okay, he's gonna keep that thought in his mind that day and be like, oh, I can protect her if anything happens, kind of thing. But really, all it did is it just stopped himself from being killed. But now Naoto should be able to look like, okay, you're still going back with tons of time to talk to me again. And obviously Naoto believed him enough the first time even to like kind of change some of his like life and perspective. So he can go back again now and be like, listen, like just becoming a cop isn't going to be enough in the future. I need you to stop her from going out this day. I need you to do anything you can, or I need you to, you know, fucking become a fucking festival organizer and make sure the festival's on a different day at a different place. Like there's so many outcomes where Naoto's smart enough that, you know, he could probably plan around it in the future to try and be like, oh, what would work on my younger self to make this work? But you just got to look past it. You got to look, you know, past. And maybe Naoto's also a dumbass. And he's just pretending to be smart. The big thing in this episode, though, is that most of this episode takes place in the future, which is nice, like in the modern time.
Yeah.
Because a funny circumstance, which is like, I didn't actually see this coming. Even when it happened, I thought it was just going to be like a joke. I didn't realize what it was actually going to lead to. But you know, now Takemichi's still in the past. You know, his life's not that bad now. It starts off, I think, just on the subway. Him and Hina there. He's kind of reminded again about like how much he likes her. You know, there's some punks kind of messing around, taking too much space on the subway and being loud. So she goes over to them, she yells at them, sets them straight, gets a nice seat for the old lady, and he's kind of reminded of like, you know, how like cool she is in her own way, and then how like, you know, he was never that tough. And then they start talking about like, you know, finals and stuff like that, and then, you know, they decide that, hey, we're gonna go study. So we get to see him go to her place, and he's like, oh, I've never like seen a girl's room before. And even then, in his mind, he's like, this never like happened before, kind of thing.
Yeah. And
that's where, you know, she starts talking how like he's different. You know, he's like, he seems like more mature and all that kind of stuff from before. You know, which makes sense. And he's like, she's like smart. He's like, I am 12 years older. And then really all that's leading up to is then there's fireworks. So they go upstairs, they go up to the roof to see the fireworks. And then you can actually see the frame before. You can see Naoto coming in from behind. And then he goes to hold Hina's hand, and he goes to hold it, and he holds the hand, and he's like, oh, this is so nice. And then he turns around to look at her in like the romantic moment. And of course, it's actually Naoto he's holding the hand of. So when I saw this, I thought it was just a bit of comedy, right? Like, that's funny. And now he's going to be like all embarrassed. And then when he's like, oh no, he's like, the conditions for going back in time. I was like, oh, fuck, right. I completely forgot about that. So then obviously he goes forward in time. He's back to his normal self. And then Naoto's like, oh, did you do it? Did you stop it somehow? I was like, wouldn't you know this?
Like maybe he just assumes like everything changes around him and he doesn't have to work.
I was like, wouldn't you immediately be like, hey, is my sister alive currently? Did you succeed? Like, you should just automatically know that. But the time travel like logistics here don't 100% make sense. Like maybe we can just assume that because Naoto is now part of the time traveling mechanic, maybe he is one person who's not affected by the changes that happen.
Yeah.
You know, maybe all of a sudden he would like receive a phone call from his sister at that moment, be like, oh, you did it, you saved her, kind of thing. Like like an end game kind of situation.
I mean, hopefully, yeah.
But obviously Takemichi then explains how it was like an accident and he didn't mean to come back. He's like, a fucking accident. He's like, you fool. And then he kind of starts explaining how like Mikey's not the problem. How he's like, I met Mikey and he's like, he's a good guy. And, Naoto's like, the fuck do you mean he's a good guy? He's like, one of the reasons my sister dies. And he's like, no. He's like, we have to go meet Mikey like in the current time. He's like, we have to go find him. We have to go meet him because I got to see. Like, it's almost like he has to see what he's like now to see like what he can change or like what has to be done or something like that.
See what actually happened and what drove him to that.
Yeah. So to find him, to go look for him. That's where they start realizing that Akun, his future has changed. So he's like still a thing. He's like a higher up in the gang. So they could use him to find him. Which makes sense, and they find out like, okay, they go to the Takemichi's place. They find his old notebook. He somehow has the same number, even through. I guess it's more realistic. He has the same number now that he didn't go to jail. He could have just kept porting the number over to different companies as he aged. Maybe that. I mean,
the big thing is he's a criminal. You think at some point he'd get like a burner number or something.
Yeah, they talk about how like Mikey's impossible to trace because he just picks up burner phones after burner phones. But he's just like, no, I'm keeping the same number and everything since I was like fucking 13 years old.
Like maybe he always kept it like hoping that Takemichi would get back in touch with him. He just kept it as like a personal number he didn't give out.
The important question here, which is what bugs me, because it's time travel and you have to think about this, is in this future now, because like what typically would happen is whatever Takemichi has changed in his life, then from there when he goes into the future, the rest of it's like an autopilot future that would play out.
Yeah.
So you think in this future, there's a good chance that Takemichi would also be part like a higher up in the gang. But he's still in the exact same spot in his life. Everything's the same for him, just everything else around him. Because they should like he should talk to Akun. He should be like, hey, like we were really close with Mikey. We all became higher ups in the gang, and then for some reason you still left at this point or something. Like something, it just doesn't 100% make sense as to what would have changed. So he still lives the exact same shitty life in the same apartment, and why he isn't also higher up in like Mikey's crew.
Yeah, I mean there is a possibility that whatever drove Mikey down the path he went is a reason Takemichi would have left.
Yeah, I mean that's possible too, but I kind of wish that they would have mentioned it, like Akun would have mentioned to be like you still left at this point, just so we can kind of understand how the rules work a little bit better.
Yeah,
maybe in the future. It's always nice like having set like a hard or even like or at this point even like a soft like a soft magic kind of system, but with time travel, some sort of time travel rules that we can know to stick by, and then we can kind of like have more predictions and guesses as to what could happen, because right now I feel like the rules are changing, so we can't really predict what's gonna happen from it.
Yeah, I mean this is obviously still the early parts of a series, so they're still kind of working out what the rules are.
Yeah,
so
but either way, so their plan, they go to the hostess bar to meet him. We get a nice little flashback, which really what to Takemichi was like the day before, where he was talking with Akun about like what would happen when they grow old, and when they get older and they separate, that kind of thing. Would they still be friends? And Akun's like, yeah, like we'll always be friends. It doesn't matter, kind of thing. Like we're friends for life. And then they go and they meet him, and he goes to take him upstairs, and they seem like really close again. It's like the classic you meet up with an old friend, and it just all comes back. They're being really really cool with each other and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where then Akun kind of reveals that he's like, hey, he's like, I was the one who pushed you onto the subway track.
Yeah, that's a huge development. Just like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, he's like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, he's like, I pushed you onto the track. And then he's like, but then like you got pulled off immediately by Naoto. And that's where he's like, and because of that, I think that you're a time traveler. He's like, the only way you could have done that is by time traveling him, like telling him to save you kind of thing. So he literally thinks he like goes back to tell Naoto to save him, even though realistically that was just like a happy accident.
Yeah.
But and then Takemichi's like, dude, like, what the fuck? He's like, why? He's like, I can't even believe that you would try and kill me. And he's like, I didn't like want to. He's like, but you know, I can't remember what the other guy's name is. Kisaki, maybe? Might be Kisaki.
Something like that, yeah.
He's like, oh, he like made me do it kind of thing. He's like the heads of the operation now. He's like, he's my boss. He's like crazy, all this kind of shit. And then
he talks about how he's scared of him and how Mikey hasn't been seen in years. Or like, what was it, months? Or
it's been a long time. Like he hasn't been like active or like that. And then he also, you know, reveals. He says like, you know, Mikey changed when Draken dies. And
right.
He's like, oh, Takemichi's like, Draken dies. He's like, I don't know about that. He just kind of basically you can see that Akun like hates his life. Life's not better or anything like that. And then he slowly starts standing up onto the rooftop. And we've all seen enough anything to know where that's going.
Yeah.
But then like before obviously anything happens, he like looks back at Takemichi. He's like, you know, like save Mikey. He's like, well, it almost like looks like he's sad because he's like, oh, you're doing all like he thinks he's doing all this to save Mikey, which must show like how close Takemichi and Mikey actually do become. Because he's not like, oh, you're doing this to save me. He's not thinking that he's doing this to save like Hina, his middle school girlfriend. He thinks that he's doing this to save Mikey, which is why he reveals the information. Be like, oh, Mikey changed when like Draken died, kind of thing. And then he's like, he like looks back and he's like, save everyone, kind of thing. And then he obviously hops off the rooftop.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't actually expecting that going into this episode.
Either was I. But as soon as they went to the rooftop, I was either like, oh, he's gonna like be a dick now, like he's gonna like attack him, kind of thing. And
I kind of expected him to push Takemichi off the roof.
Yeah, but even then, as soon as like the first time I thought is like when he went to go like wrap his arm around him, it was like a scene where like he looked like he was going around for something. I was like, oh fuck, he's like doing something sus here. But then when he just wrapped his arm, I was like, okay, no, we're good. But then when he started moving towards the edge, he's like, oh fuck yeah, he's jumping. I was like, this dude's jumping right off. But you know, he's save. He believes that Takemichi is traveling through time, which obviously correct. Kind of a stupid assumption to go that just by the fact he was immediately saved once.
I mean, the way he said it seemed like Naoto was going to save him before it even happened.
Yeah, which is, I mean, is possible in like a sense if he was watching from the sidelines. But then you could assume that Naoto's like a police officer. Takemichi had some sort of pull at some point, like some sort of connection with this like gang. Naoto could have just been following Takemichi, and then you know as he saw him get pushed over and goes to save him. Either way, it's a bit of a jump to assume he's a time traveler, but he's right, so I can't fault him.
True.
Either way, though, he says save everyone. Takemichi goes to look over the edge, sees him dead, and you know starts to freak out a little bit. And then, you know, we see Naoto talking to the police officers and they want to question him. And, you know, he's like, yeah, I'll question them. And then, so it's more of like a line now that he realizes that he's not just doing this to save Hina. He's doing this to save, he's doing it to save Hina. He's doing it to save Mikey. He's doing it to save Draken. Now he has to save, you know, Akun. Who knows what happened to like the rest of his friends too. Like this is just one of his friends that got high up because of this. His other friends probably did too. So I think at some point we're going to go back in the future and we're going to see how his other friends turned out as well. And it's going to become more of a thing about he literally has to save everyone instead of just being about saving his middle school girlfriend. So I feel like we got a big plot development, and I like the sense of now like we think that Mikey and Draken are like good, are going to be good guys. It's just that something happened that they obviously went down like the wrong path. And I like that. I like that more than just him trying to stop these guys from meeting the other one. I like it more of like he's like I have to save all of these people because they're good people, and just like circumstances happen. You know, shit goes like the wrong way.
Yeah, it's obviously that. Whatever the fuck his name is, who's in charge now, is obviously the problem.
Yeah, I think
so he's going to come down to how he gets rid of him.
Well, the other important thing is that we see him listening in on the conversation too.
True.
So in the future, we see him like chilling on. I don't know if he was like below the roof or something like that, but we saw him there, and we literally heard the voices of the other characters talking behind him, so he could hear. We don't know how much he heard, but either way, he was there. He didn't necessarily look. He didn't like look upset or particularly happy. He didn't really have much of an expression on him. He was just kind of listening.
Yeah, because we're not sure what's going to happen now that Akun's gone. Like, especially if this guy ordered Takemichi be killed.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, what purpose would he have in killing Takemichi after all these years?
That's what I'm saying. That the thing is, the only reasons are either he knows something else. Like maybe he's also a time traveler. Like, you know, we don't know what gave Takemichi this power. It's a very weird power to have. The first time is just caused by his like death or his near death, and then you know the next time, some sort of weird handshake development. But for all we know, there are other characters with this, and maybe this Kisaki guy or whatever is also one of them. Or maybe he even knew about it before Takemichi did or something. Like, we don't really know like what the plot with the actual power is. We're just thinking about the plot that the power can help and solve and stuff like that. Or even it could just be something between when we last had Takemichi in the past and the current future. We know that Takemichi's goal was to try and split them up, which maybe made the Kisaki character not like Takemichi very much from something he did that we didn't get to see yet.
That is true, but still, why order a hit 12 years down the line?
I know, right? It seems a little sus, which makes me think there's something to do with the time traveling powers. That would also make more sense as to why Akun actually thought he could time travel, because the current reasons aren't enough. But I think if he had more information, or maybe he overheard something that Kisaki was saying or something, that he might believe it, or maybe even if he knows that the Kisaki character can also travel time, he might think it's more available to other people, and that's why he can make the link a little bit easier.
That is true. I was just thinking that maybe Mikey was trying to reach out to Takemichi because he was a buddy from the old days, but...
Yeah, maybe, and then it still seems like a pretty aggressive reason to have someone immediately killed.
I mean, this is the guy who killed an innocent to smash up a shop, so...
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to see more about it. I think that this episode had a good plot development, though, and both like now I think it's giving us a better drive than just trying to save his girlfriend. Because even like if he went back now and he was just like, hey, Naoto, just tie your sister up that day, she can't go out, he's going to save her, but he's still not going to save all the rest of his friends.
Yeah.
So now he has more drive. The solution isn't as easy as before. Now he actually has to play this out. He has to go in and play a decent amount of time in the past to try and solve this, instead of just having a quick solution like he realistically could have done to save his girlfriend. Because as we mentioned, that would be pretty easy to do. But this next one, to like try and save Draken when right now he doesn't know when Draken dies. I'm sure in the next episode, Naoto's going to look it up and find it out, and they're going to know. And then
it shouldn't be too hard to figure out when a punk got stabbed or guffed or anything like that, if he has access to police records. But
yeah, I think they're going to figure that out, and that's going to be like, it's almost going to be like Vivy in a sense, where they're going to have different time periods where big things happen and he's got to change them. But unlike Vivy, which just goes like arc to arc to those moments, I think in Tokyo Revengers we're going to have to watch everything play out in between. So
yeah, he's going to have to go back and actually live as a middle schooler for a little while and try and figure this out. So
I mean, yeah, the other thing too that he could do is like, if you know that Draken dies on this day, which is like 3 months from the current date you're on, or where you went back, you could realistically just spend like 2 months in the future preparing for this and then go back just to right before it happens. Which maybe we'll see. We might see something like that happen, but
yeah, we might again learn some like actual like combat techniques too, so he won't suck so much at fighting in the past.
Yeah, I mean that would be cool if he actually trains with like Naoto as like a police officer now, and he learns how to fight. So then when he goes and they just go back like a little bit before each like thing happens. I mean, we're basically getting into the same plot as Vivy at that point, but either way, I'm down for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid plot point. It's Vivy's very like linear, while this one's kind of bouncing back and forth, which is nice.
Yeah.
So
either way, I thought this episode added a lot to the show so far. Got me more hyped for the next episodes. Just in general to see how he kind of reacts, and I hope we get to see more of him going into the future again to see how his other friends make out and stuff too, which would always be interesting.
Yeah, seeing how the other idiots kind of ended up would be a nice development, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, either way, I'm excited. So if you guys are a fan of the show or have any comments or anything like that, or what you want to see, or any predictions, theories, anything like that, leave it down below as always. Since this does have like a manga to it, as always, if you have a spoiler, make sure you tag it as a spoiler and just say, hey, Tokyo Revenger spoiler here. Leave it far enough down below that people have to hit read more to see it, and that way no one gets spoiled if they don't want to. And then we will be back next week for episode number 5. Next up on the list, one that aired yesterday, was Higehiro episode number 5.
Reality.
So once again, we discussed this before. Higehiro, obviously a slice of life, so it doesn't have as much weekly content for us to talk about. But we decided we're just going to talk about it anyways, because I feel like eventually there's going to be some real like emotional episodes.
There's going to be drama. So
yeah, I don't think this one was so much. There were a couple times where I felt like the drama in this one felt like a little bit forced in a sense, where to me it didn't actually like seem like that sad. But I think that's just more hints about the characters and like their plot and stuff like that. Because obviously, going off after last week, he told Goto that he has like the teenage girl staying with him kind of thing, and she's like, okay, let me go meet her. So we see him bringing her back to the place, going in, and then most of the episode is really just a private conversation between the two of them, while at the same time it's the main character goes to like the grocery store and meets up with his coworker, and they're having a conversation. So for the most part, the episode is just taking place in those two separate two-person conversations. But I don't find like realistically you got a lot extra out of the episode when it came to like developments and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
obviously we know that the main girl, something dramatic happened in her past. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say it's like a best friend killed herself or something.
That I'd wager something like that, or maybe a falling out.
Yeah,
That
like
was a little more
just
extreme,
based
but
off like I mean, like I feel like it has to be pretty bad because whenever she thinks about it, even in this one, she says like when she thinks about it, she almost has to vomit. And we saw in the previous episode her getting like the flashbacks and stuff and literally having to go vomit.
Yeah.
So it's got to be pretty bad. But a lot of it's just her talking with Goto about like Goto's asking like, oh, why are you here? Like, where are you from? All this kind of stuff. And she gets into the thing about how like she talks about how like the title of being like a teenager or like a teenage girl will like help you out in a lot of situations, but you basically can't make it like permanent. It kind of it like makes sense in like an actual like realistic point of it being like, if you're a teenager who just like stays home, plays video games all day and doesn't do anything, no one really looks bad on you. It's just that you're a teenager. But if you do that exact same thing when you're in like your 20s, even a couple years later, you basically like in like Japanese culture, you become like a neat kind of thing, or like you become like a shut in, that kind of stuff. And it goes to being like, hey, you have this title right now that you can use, but it's basically like, but like how long are you intending to use it? She's trying to figure out like what her goals are in the future, how long she intends to stay there, like what she's gonna do. So it's not that it's not an important conversation, it is, but in general, the actual the impact, it doesn't really leave anything different. She still knows that she's welcome there. She's still going to keep working her job. She's not ready to decide what her next step is yet. She's just going to enjoy it while she's there. And she's like, I'm living with a guy who's nice, clearly, and he takes care of me, and he's not going to use me. And she kind of she explains to Goto like how she's been used in the past, basically being like, hey, I need a place to stay. So like I also sometimes I liked the fact that these people like wanted me, that they liked me, that they needed me, kind of thing. So like you get a little bit of development, and then she mentions like her past briefly with like trying to explain how when she thinks about it, she wants to throw up and stuff. But we don't really learn extra. We don't learn anything really bonus from her past that we didn't already know from like implications in the last episodes.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice. I mean, I guess maybe I kind of wanted Goto to be like a secret bitch. Like
I think everyone was banking on that because she seemed very much like she was just trying to get information to kind of screw him over.
Because even then, like once she's like, hey, like, can you basically get him to leave so we can have a one-on-one conversation? I'm like, okay, shit's coming out now. Here we go.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, she wasn't a secret bitch. She was a nice character. Maybe she has time to change. Yeah, there's still time. But as of right now, she's basically just like giving her advice, trying to figure it out, that kind of stuff. And that's pretty much it. You can see obviously that she knows that the other girl is developing some sort of feelings for the main character.
Yeah.
Even if like she won't admit it, right? She's like, oh, she asks like, hey, do you like him? And she's like, oh, like, does it matter to you if I do? And she's like, no. She's like, no, I'll root for you because like I want him to be happy, kind of thing. But she's like, there's like a sense of like that's not 100% true. Like I think even Goto admits at one point that she's not telling all of her like true emotions and that kind of stuff. So, and then the conversation with the main character, I need to remember names for the show. The main character and his coworker.
Yeah. The fact that we remember Goto, but we don't remember anybody else is kind of sad.
The main girl is it Hina? I don't know.
It's Hina or Hima.
It's on that. It's on that sense. I literally, is the main guy's name like Yamazaki?
I feel like that's just a little too on the nose.
I don't know. I feel like it starts with a Y as well. But either way, him and his coworker at the store coming out of it to me had even less impact than the other conversation. It was
just reiterating what has already been established.
Yeah, to me, the coworker character is like my least favorite character so far because she's just fucking annoying. So one, she basically admits that she full out stalked him, and then she's honest enough to be like, "Hey, I'm sorry for stalking you." Like she knows that she's a dumbass and she did it.
I just kind of followed you, and then shit was going down.
Yeah,
so
she's like, I saw you talking to Goto, and then you guys left, and you went to like a meat place, and then so I went there, and you guys were kind of close, and then after that, I saw you guys leave that to go back to your place, so I followed you there. I'm like, okay, you're going too far, lady. Like, too much following him.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, the fact that she's not just full out admitting that she likes him yet, or that he's not just seeing that she must like him to follow him to that extent. It's the classic like main character too stupid kind of situation.
That is true, because in the last episode, she tried to make her move, but it didn't work. Because he's just kind of like, why are you hugging me? He didn't put two and two together. But
well, even, I don't know. The fact that she's like yelling at him in this or like getting mad at him because he thinks he can have it both ways, where he wants to A, help out a girl in need, and B, also have like Goto as like his girlfriend. And she's like, you can't have both. She's like, if you want to date Goto, you have to get rid of the girl who's living with the teenage girl's living with you. And he's like, but I'm not going to do that though. And she's like, yeah, well, she's like, you're too nice. Like, I'm like, is he too nice? Like, what do you want him to do? It's like, why can he not? I mean, A, he doesn't need both right now, right? Like, we know obviously she doesn't. that the relationship between him and Goto isn't going with her anywhere yet. You
Yeah.
know, as we know, that it's up to her to make the next move, kind of thing. And you know, if she knows about the teenage girls living with him, it's really none of this girl's business as to whether or not, you know, maybe she'll like, if Goto's like, hey, I don't want to date you while you're living with a teenage girl. Not even that, like, you know, it's just that you have a very small apartment kind of thing, and it's kind of weird because, you know, you're not actually related to her, and, you know, where are we going to go when we want to be alone together and stuff like that. Even if that's up to Goto and him, you know, if they start dating, it's got nothing to do with this stupid coworker. Obviously, we know
that is true.
We obviously know that she likes him. It's just like a fact, you know. It's just how anime works. But either way, her conversation with him, and like, he's just the classic, oh, I'm a dumb protagonist, I don't know what's going on kind of situation. But I don't know. Right now, that conversation didn't add much. It was just her kind of being a dumbass, being like, oh, you can't have it both ways. And he's like, but I both like this woman, and I'd like to protect this young girl who has nowhere to go.
Yeah, and I think that's very much just her character, just being that very greedy, very much, I want you, so I'm going to put you in a position where you have to make a choice type situation.
Yeah, she's not even an option in the choice yet. You know, at least try to get yourself into one of the options in the choice first before you start worrying about which one he picks.
I mean, yeah. Maybe she's hoping he'll choose the girl, so Goto will leave, then he'll get tired of the girl, so she can swoop in.
Maybe, because even then she's like, oh, I'm gonna leave before I say anything else that, you know, I'll regret or anything else that's harsh. And he's like, okay, he like doesn't give a fuck. He's just like, oh, bye. He's still confused. He's
very chill. He's
still confused as to what the fuck is going on. He like doesn't understand the conversation.
Yeah, I think if she actually came out, he'd realize like, oh shit, the context of everything you've said suddenly makes sense.
Yeah, I know. But the fact that he doesn't realize it when, you know, she asked him to go to places, she wanted to go to the movies with him, she tried like, you know, holding his arm and stuff. I don't know. The fact that he doesn't get that she likes him, it's just the classic anime protagonist. But you know, most of the time the classic anime protagonists are in like their like teens. He's in like his like mid to late 20s. You should fucking know when a girl likes you by that point. When you're both adults and they're asking you to go to the movies and hang out after and asking to go shopping with you and stuff. I think that most people can realize what that means.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm willing to bet we're going to get some background where he's going to be like, oh, I didn't really date in high school or some shit like that.
I would hope so, to explain why he's fucking stupid, but like it wasn't a bad episode. I still enjoyed watching the whole thing, and we got a little bit more character development that I think will make more sense and be more important when we get more of the backstory of the main girl. But in general, right, like the episode was nothing to write home about. It was just the entire episode was two different conversations. You know, obviously I was kind of hoping for the secret bitch, but it's nice to see where the plot's going to go, because I thought this plot would drag on longer, the whole like, you know, Goto and the girl and what's going to happen, but it's over now, so I'm like, where are we going? Like,
I was honestly expecting some sort of like, oh, they told someone and now he has to try and explain this to the cops or some shit like that.
Yeah, it's just the classic, I just don't know like where the next episode's going, which is like a good thing. I wouldn't really want this, you know, this specific like little kind of plot here to drag on for too long. I like that it was just kind of over and done in one episode. Now we can kind of move on to see like what happens next. If it's going to be more with his coworker, if it's going to be, you know, more, maybe we're going to get into the past of like the main girl sooner than we thought. I feel like eventually.
Maybe because did you watch the after credit scene with this one?
No, I didn't. I didn't even know there was one.
Okay, yeah, it's it shows the friend, like the blonde that she works with.
Okay, yeah, the convenience store girl.
Okay. Yeah, and it shows her talking to her coworker, who's a guy, who's talking about how he wants to meet. I'm just gonna call her Hina because I'm pretty sure that's the name. But he kind of looks like he might be one of the people from her past.
So it might be someone looking for her, like a brother, a father, a character from her school, or like a person.
No, someone who let her stay with him for.
Oh no,
favors.
That's dramatic.
That's what I'm. He just looked like a slime ball, so I'm wondering if that's what it is. So.
I kind of hope it is, because that sounds dramatic, you know, but you know, maybe we get like a fight. I'm excited for a fight. I'm excited for the main character to have to kick someone's ass, you know, for being a bad person.
I'd be done for that.
I'm all, you know,
kicking someone's ass.
I hope that's the plot, and if that's the plot, then we will see you for a spicy episode next week, guys. But yeah, if you have any thoughts on the show, obviously they're pretty short discussions when it comes to this anime, because like we're not just gonna word for word talk about the discussion they had. We're just gonna kind of get across the important parts of it that might have effect later. So they'll never go on for too long, but it's still nice. It's an anime we like watching, we like talking about, and I think as the show gets on, it's going to be a very emotional anime, which I think most people kind of guessed as soon as the show started.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just gonna, you know, if you have any thoughts about anything like that, we're gonna keep talking about it. So we'll see you next week for hopefully a spicy episode number 6.
Hopefully.
Okay, last up on the list, another big one is To Your Eternity, episode number 4.
A large vessel.
So I think that once again,
it seems like this is like the theme for a lot of the anime so far. I think this was very much a setup episode, and I think next week's episode is going to be like big.
This is getting all the pieces into place so we could have these exciting escape sequence, I think. So.
Yeah, exactly. So as we learned from last episode, this one they take the 3 characters to the town. I think it's Yanome is the town, which is a much bigger, more progressive town than like we saw previously. And like I can't remember the Niganana or whatever the hell the first town was.
It's something like that. Yeah.
But they're taking them here, and even though they are technically prisoners at this point, the lady's treating them pretty well. She's letting them, go out and buy whatever they want. She shows, she's buying a hat at one point. She's eating like a snow cone. They're getting some food, all that kind of stuff. And they put them in some nice new clothes. Like everything's looking pretty good. They're prisoners, but like they're being treated pretty well. Until they go to eat a noodle dish, and then they eat their noodle dish, and then they all pass out, and we're like, oh no, because we all saw the next time episode on the last one. We're like, yeah, we know where this is going.
Yeah, we knew that they were going to end up in prison. Somehow it's just a matter of how they got there. So
yeah, so she knocks them all out with drugs. She imprisons them, and then we kind of get like the more plot what's going on. She's basically explaining, this is like the bear, this is Oniguma kind of thing, and then this is like the person who like killed it kind of thing, and the other one she's talking to is like, oh, is this a god or is this like a monster? She's like, I don't know. One of those two.
Which this did make me kind of question something because she talks about how he beat Oniguma.
Mm-hmm.
But is Oniguma alive?
So Oniguma was alive at that point.
Okay.
So it looks like what happened basically is that she wants. I don't exactly understand what her full goal is, but she has them in prison. She wants to run tests on what's Fuchan, just to figure out what the hell is going on. Be like, hey, we can use this like immortality to our advantage in the future, kind of thing. And then also Oniguma is still alive at this point, so she's trying to get people to, nurse him back to health, but none of the people will do it because they're too scared, right? It's a fucking huge ass demon bear apparently.
Yeah.
With monstrous spikes coming out of it. So we get to see multiple different parts where we see March is obviously imprisoned, and right above her is I can't remember her name. It starts with a P.
Pirone.
Yeah, so she's imprisoned above her, and she basically is trying to form a plan to break out. And then they're taking Fuchan and they're bringing him down to the dungeon, and they're running some experiments on him. So they literally originally they sent in the guy with a spear, and the guy's charging at it, being like, "Oh, if I kill you, then I can go free," kind of thing. And he stabs him with the spear. The wound from the spear immediately heals, and then Fuchan, a spear comes out of his body and stabs the other guy. So once again, showing how we're going to see the fights go in the future, like how we can obviously envision now how these fights are going to go. Anything is even being hit by. Because then right after that, the old lady comes in, with an axe and starts wailing on him with an axe as he just slowly starts to walk away from it.
He did pick up a couple new words too.
He does know it hurts now, so that's a useful set of words for him.
I'm not sure if he understands what pain is, but yeah.
Yeah, there was also some like he kept trying to like go towards like Oniguma, and I don't 100% know what it was about. And
I feel like he's trying to like take over, like almost like become Oniguma this time.
He's trying to get a bear form. I mean, he's 100% going to get a bear form, right?
I mean, yeah. I'm surprised he didn't get it when he fought him.
Yeah, that's true. But even after, so at one point, Fuchan and March, they don't really break out, but they break into another room with Oniguma in it. And that's where the one girl comes down and sees them there, and she decides that like March is like going close to the bear and that kind of stuff, and no one else will. So she's like, oh, we'll just use March to nurse Oniguma back to health, kind of thing.
Yeah, she just doesn't give a fuck. She's like, okay, it's a bear, I'll just hide under it. And
yeah, so at the same time too, we're seeing that we're seeing images of like March nurse it. She's like, she pulls out one of the spikes trying to figure out what it is, and it is actually an arrow. So it's not some sort of weird demon spiky bear. It is just a very massive bear who has been shot many times with arrows.
It has, yeah. And I'm surprised the bear is still standing, just based on the fact that these are all still bleeding wounds.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird because I guess it just goes to show that like we looked at Oniguma as like a bad thing, but realistically, it's just a bear that has been shot by so many people. It's probably pretty fucking pissed at humanity at this point. And even March mentioned, she's like, it's not his fault that he's just hungry for human flesh. Like it's yeah, it kind of sucks, but I mean, what can you do? It's just like the circle of life, right? Like,
yeah, that's probably the most chill I've ever heard anyone be about animals eating humans.
Someone eating human. Yeah, it was just like, hey, it's not his fault. Like, he just likes human flesh. Like, who cares?
And to be fair, the only person we've actually seen him eat so far shot him with an arrow first.
Yeah, I mean, he's also eating all the people on the slab, but I mean, that's just like, come on, they're asking for it.
I mean, it's free meat, right? They probably had already died of either dehydration or starvation before that. So
Yeah, we are seeing a little flashback from whatever the hell her name is that starts with a P of like her as a kid. Basically, it was like the week where they were going to pick a new sacrifice, and her sister was like took her out to force like, hey, let's play hide and seek or whatever like that. Stay here and don't come out. And then when she goes back to town like a week later, they're like, where have you been? It's been like a week kind of thing. And she's like, oh, I was playing with my sister. She's like, where is she? And they're like, oh, she's gone. She was like chosen to be sacrificed kind of thing. So obviously the sister did not want her sister to die. So she made up the game and had her there, which kind of shows as to why she was so like adamant about not having March die to the sacrifice too. And then then like the old lady early on tells her like the sacrifice is just bullshit anyways. It's literally just like a ploy.
It's a way of manipulating the people.
Yeah, it's a ploy by the Yanome government to like manipulate like the village. That's kind of stupid with like the older elders and stuff like that who believe it's true. And then that's where she decides she's like, I'm gonna stop this from happening. She's like, I can, if I get some Oniguma, like if I bring out his eyes and some of his skin and stuff like that and bring it back to the village, I can say, hey, it's not real. He's gone, he's dead, that kind of thing. So we can stop falling for this now. And that's like her plan to escape.
Little flawed because it involves her actually escaping and getting away and convincing these people.
Yeah, her plan is basically she's like, okay, here's what's gonna happen. She's like, the old lady here is teaching me more about like Yanome or something like that. She's like, then we're gonna take out one of the guards, take his costume. I'm gonna go take some Oniguma's pieces, and then we'll flee and get out with March and Fuchan, and then we'll go back to the village and solve this. Yeah. I mean, some of her plan goes right.
I mean, it was kind of incidental that it went down that way, but
well, the main thing that starts the plan action is that Oniguma dies. So, at one point they look over and his eyes are shut, and then they realize that he has died, from his wounds. Poor little bear.
Yeah.
So then they decide that it's time to go ahead with the plan kind of thing. Because they were using March she was the one taking care of it, so now they can kind of do whatever they want to do next. So that's where she decides it's time. Her plan doesn't go well as she tries to go down to March's room. Like, everything kind of fucks up, and she has to like dive into the storage room just to not fall to her death. Yeah. But luckily, upon landing there, a guard comes in to see what's going on and try to sexually assault her. Perfect timing for that guard until he gets mopped. And then, she takes his costume, she goes up and she tells March it's her and they're going to escape. And that's like where the episode ends.
It is, yeah.
Obviously, next week, though, as we saw from like the next time, it's about them breaking out, taking some of Oniguma's flesh and stuff like that, escaping, going back to the village. So we're going to see the one crazy halberd lady and all of her guards chase them. And I think in the next episode, they really talked about how like Fuchan's going to get like his next evolution, like his next part of growth from something that happened in the next one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, even just based on this, the fact that they referred to it as a large vessel. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to get to see him turn into Oniguma.
I think so, but I think it's always double stranded. It's not just about the transformation he makes in physical form. I think it's going to be once again more about like
a mental evolution too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be about like protecting people that he's come to like, kind of thing, which is they're
going to take a shot at March or Perone or something like that, and he's going to take the hit and he's going to turn into the bear to fuck up the people.
Yeah, because I don't think he was actively like before. I don't think he was actively saving March. Even if like you look at maybe if he did, it's because she was one feeding him kind of situation. But even then,
I think it was less he wanted to protect someone he cared about, more this person gave me food and I want more food.
Even then though, he literally just like he didn't even go there actively to find March. He just like he walked that direction and then he wandered in, and then the bear Oniguma like bit him and killed him, and then he turned into the wolf and fought it back. So it was more to say it's because he was just there and it was self-defense, and it was like a why not situation. But I think now in the next episode, A, with maybe a physical form of becoming Oniguma, and then B, with the actual like mental evolution of actually protecting someone he cares for, or like developing a bond kind of situation. Either way, I think it's going to be a pretty exciting next episode. We're going to get to see some sick more his like, because like the fighting, I think the fighting is going to look fantastic with him. He's going to become a wolf sometimes, maybe a bear eventually. He's got like the spears and axes now he can pull out of himself. Probably an arrow too, because he got hit by an arrow in this episode. Like, there's probably a lot he's gonna be able to do. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of transformation combat. It's gonna be a lot of regeneration. I'm just hoping the animation keeps up with it because they've been doing a beautiful job so far.
I'm sure it will. So. As I said, like it seems like they put a decent budget into this. Obviously, going off like the writer, very successful with like a silent voice, probably more.
True.
Even as I said, like the opening being done by Utada Hikaru, who does all the Kingdom Hearts openings. It's like
that is a good sign.
It's like a quality opening from like a pretty well respected singer too. Yeah. So even like have you watched the ending at all? The ending is really good too.
Oh yeah, the opening and the ending are both beautiful. So
Yeah, so I think they definitely put a big budget into the show. So I think that we have I don't think that we're going to see very many quality drops. Like I feel like the animation is going to be one thing that's going to be insane as the fights get bigger and bigger. But either way, I'm just excited for next episode. I know a lot of people are excited for this anime. So if you're a fan of the anime, leave us a comment down below about your favorite part, your favorite character, where you think it's going to go, any predictions, anything like that. Always useful. As I said, if there's any spoilers, because I think there's manga content for this.
It's either manga or light novel based. I'm not sure which one.
If you have any like knowledge of it, that we don't know yet in the show, just make sure you leave a spoiler tag. I'm hoping you guys are just enjoying it because we're going to be talking about this. I don't know if it's a 1-season show or if it'll be a multiple season show, but either way, we're going to be here talking about it because we're pretty excited about it. You got any final thoughts at all on the episode?
No, honestly, this has been one of the highlights of my week. Just keeping up with the series, I'm always excited to see it. I think the only problem I have is the fact that we record right after we see it usually, so I have to kind of rush getting to it, so I can't savor it. So
yeah, I mean, I guess maybe a second watch just to get some extra information or something like that before the other one comes out. But either way, it's definitely an enjoyable show. It could be an easy highlight of the season.
Oh yeah.
Which and once again, kind of like I mentioned earlier with I think one of the other shows, this also has the potential to be a anime for even people that don't like anime.
Yeah, it's unique enough in its story. It's not completely steeped in Japanese tradition, so you don't have to get into that to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's very much its own lore and its own kind of, I don't want to say derivative, but its own style. So.
Yeah, and even as I mentioned too, like the quality alone, like it's really easy. It's much easier to convince someone to watch an anime when the quality is like really, really high.
Oh God, yeah.
Which is nice. So yeah, either way, we're just looking forward to the future episodes. We'll be talking about episode 5 next week, and we'll be continuing to talk about it until the show ends. So if you have any thoughts on anything like that, leave it down below. And that is it for the weekly episodes. We've finished them all.
Yeah.
So as always, if you've gotten this far, we ask that you like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Always important.
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate everything you guys do. Any word of mouth, any interactions is always appreciated. So
yeah, as I mentioned before, even something like fantastic, like To Your Eternity that we just talked about, even on there, like when I post on the subreddit, they will not allow us to post on the subreddit because it's self-promotion. Which it is self-promotion. I can't argue it, but really most of the time, it's not that we want people to come in to subscribe and grow our numbers. It's just that we need more people to talk about the anime, right? Like. If we had as many comments about Kumo Desu as we had about every other anime on this list, it would be insane. Like there'd be so much discussion, and that's a part of it because the subreddit allows us there and actually enjoys it.
Yeah.
We're getting lots of upvotes on the threads and stuff like that, and people are liking it. Like if every single anime Reddit did the exact same thing, like it'd be insane. We'd have hundreds of comments with like actual discussions going on inside of the chats. Because realistically, it's like 90% Kumo Desu comments, and there's a person or a couple being like, "Hey, I liked this episode of To Your Eternity," but without being able to post stuff in the subreddit there, it's unlikely we're gonna get new people finding it from there. So it just kind of sucks. But if you have a place that you can share it, of course, feel free to. We'd love that. We'd really appreciate that stuff like personal discords. Even if you have any sway on any of the subreddits or anything like that. It'd be really nice, and it helps us kind of grow. And by growing, we get more people in. More people means more good discussions down in the comments, but down below.
Exactly.
And it also just means too that like as we get more people into new seasons, we can kind of I feel like we can get a little bit more edgy with like the anime we pick. Obviously, a lot
less broad appeal, a little bit more.
Yeah, like obviously right now a lot of people are like, "Hey, you guys are just doing like covering all like the mainstream shonen and that kind of stuff." And it's really a lot of times we have to pick the anime that have like the the most people or like
big
the most
fan
people
bases.
Yeah, big fan bases, just so we can get more comments and discussions and stuff like that going. But like eventually, if we had a big enough audience, just like no matter what anime we talked about from all these different places, we could probably do a couple more niche anime series. And
we can easily just dedicate an episode specifically to talking about an anime we just like talking about.
Yeah.
That we don't necessarily think everyone's going to want to talk about.
like we like talking about all the anime we watch anyways, but a lot it comes in both. We have to both look at it as, hey, what do we enjoy watching and talking about, and what do we know that there's a big enough fan base to support it for? Even something like Vivy, for instance, it was more of like obviously it's an extremely high quality anime, and I think that a lot of people will look back on it as a good one, and it'll get a fan base. But when we started it, like there wasn't many people on the subreddit. It was just made. It's an anime original. Right, so there wasn't a pre-existing fan base to go off of, so we're not getting tons of comments even about something like Vivy, even though it's like one of the highest quality anime from the season, and that's just part of life. If anything, I hope a lot of people who are here for other stuff like Kumo Desu and stuff like that, they're deciding to check out some of these other anime, and then they can come in to both leave us a comment on that and on the other anime they like. So that's always important. But I mean that's pretty much it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly do want to say if anyone does end up watching something like Vivy because they saw it here, I consider that a success. But
yeah, and as I always ask too,
Yes.
like if you're here, watching anything, always make sure to leave us a comment as to like what you're watching from our list. I like seeing them. Like a lot of times people come and be like, "Hey, I'm watching everything on your list, but like My Hero Academia." And stuff like that's good because then I know like, we have people watching a little bit of everything. Because if there's one show on this
Yeah.
list that no one is commenting about or no one's, talking about how they're watching it, then it makes me wonder like, okay, should we take this off the list and toss something else on and see how
Yeah.
that one does instead? Like, we have to think about that kind of stuff because it is still like a YouTube channel and we do get to see some sort of growth and we want to see more comments and that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah,
we
definitely.
got to think about that kind of stuff. And as always too, if you were like, if you found us, I would be really interested to know like what video or what anime you found us off of or like what subreddit. For the most part, a lot of it's probably gonna be the Kumo Desu one. But if you're like, hey, I originally found your channel through like a Higehiro Reddit post, just let us know down below. Even if it's from anime from last season, if you've been here since episode 1 somehow, let us know down below. It's a good time to flex how long you've been here, or good time just to give us information as to like how you found us, so I can know what's working and what's not.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's pretty much it, though, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As I said, be sure to comment down below. That's the most important part. I typically like to try and leave like a pinned comment down below with some sort of question. So if you can, go down there and answer whatever question I've put. It helps the algorithm and it starts more discussions. And we will be seeing you next week for episode number 35. Thanks, guys. Peace.
Peace.